Article 1, which is the town reports, which is your little white book you pick up at the election every year, and all we're doing is approving that. This is kind of like a housekeeping article. So,
you're gonna go through each one of these articles in the order you have them listed?
I am, that's what my planning, yeah. And there'll be one we'll skip, so. So Article 1, town reports.
We don't have that book to look at, but.
Well, it's
we'll just
downstairs.
Oh, it is downstairs?
Yeah, it comes out with, oh, you're right, we don't have it.
No, we don't have it
How the
yet.
town election.
Yeah, you know why I'm so used to, well, how many years have it, this has been well after the election.
It's in process of going to the printer.
Oh, okay.
The draft is done, and Francis did the final proof on it, so we should have it very soon, probably before your meetings end.
Thank you.
All right, so why don't we, even though we don't,
We can hold until we actually get it. Can you send us an electronic copy of it, Robin?
I believe she may have a PDF, it may not have all the graphics, but you'll
That's
get all the
fine.
content.
So we'll hold off on that, so
Okay.
this one will go to the next meeting. Same thing with Article 2, because we do not have the Community Preservation Committee report yet, that's usually an appendix in the back of the book. Barbara is still working on that, so we don't have that detail, so we're gonna have to skip that one as well. With all the new numbers in it and the whole bit?
I was given this by Penny, as far as I know, I don't know of any other report, so.
I know, I spoke to Barbara today, and Barbara told me that she didn't have it ready, and she didn't have the numbers, and she planned on having it to us as soon as possible. Yeah. Article,
so before we leave that one, I was just wondering, I'm looking, the way that article is written, I didn't get a chance to go back and look at prior years, but it says to hear the report and so forth.
Yeah.
And usually it's just a report with something in here. This warrant article says, and to appropriate funds, blah, 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 blah. We're not appropriating funds with this article. We'll appropriate funds in the other articles. So I'm just wondering if that the motion for this and/or the article itself should just end where it says, on the second line, on the community preservation budget, period.
Which warrant article are you talking about? You lost me, okay.
and it does, the other, this is the same article as last year.
I was just gonna say, it's no change from last year.
Right. It just caught my eye this year, whereas,
The only thing that's different is the fiscal year.
Yeah.
And it actually isn't any different than the year before that, because I grabbed the wrong book.
and I just, in reading these in a little more detail this year, it was,
Yeah, I grabbed the
but we're not
yellow one.
appropriating any funds in the article, so why are we talking about appropriating? Okay.
I mean, we can always, amend the article and take out the words if you'd like. I have no skin off my nose if you want to.
I think I'll refer that to Barbara to find out if there's a reason why all that
All right,
added
so-
language about appropriation, it needs to be in there.
All right, we'll skip Article 2. And I'll ask her that question, so let me just write that down. Thank you for pointing that out, though. I don't know why I just skipped over that. I looked for it. All right, so Article 3 is the Community Preservation's Administration Funds. This is, they're going,
Here if you want to look on
I think this is an increase this year, right?
From 25 to 30, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I have it on. I have it on.
it. Okay.
I don't have it
So-
upstairs with me.
generally, this is just for them to do any business, and then if they don't spend it, it goes right back in.
Barbara did right. I don't have a problem with that. I would just note that I don't have the 24 and 25 expenditures, but they spent between $3,400 and $5,500 in 4 or 5 years prior to that, so they don't really spend a lot of it other than
Back in.
it's available in case they need to do it for something.
Exactly.
Do you want a motion that we recommend to approve as written?
Yes, please. Is that you?
That would be me.
Second.
Jim Waddick seconds. Any further questions or comments on Article 3? Yes, 7. All those in favor? Oh, 7-0. Okay. Article 4, Community Preservation Debt Service. We're going to have to skip this as well because there's a bullet point missing for the funds related to the senior center.
Oh, okay.
Oh, because everything else is the same as last year.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, different, slightly different figures, but the
yeah,
same.
they would adjust as we pay it
Yeah.
down, but, yeah, right now, we just need
All
to
the same
skip
day.
that.
So we're holding that?
Yes, that's gonna hold in. You'll see next week when I go to, publish it, I'll add these back in, in the
Oh, okay,
front.
sure.
Yeah. So we did administration, debt services, a skip. All right, gravestone restoration, Article 5.
I say, on 4, do all those articles, or all of the expenditures have to be, is it bunched together, or can they be picked apart? Can you
No,
like?
if
or you
you're
have
in
to-
one article, you're taking them all as
So
one
either it's
article.
all or nothing, you can't say, I want 3 of the 4 that expenditures, or,
Well, you
We've
could.
already approved the debt in prior years, we're just paying, approving the appropriation out of this.
okay.
Yeah, this is just paying for debt service.
Previous
Literally.
period, okay.
Okay,
Yep.
so moving on past Article 4 to, what did I say it was, Article 5, community preservation gravestone restoration.
Same as last year.
And it's less
So
money.
if you will indulge me,
Yes, Mike's got some comments.
I handed out, I did a little homework on CPC funds in the past. So the handouts I gave everyone, the first page, I went to the website where all the approved articles are kept and kind of downloaded them. The first page just sorts by fiscal year, how much money was approved in articles in that year, and puts it into the 4 CPC buckets: historic, housing, open space, and recreation. So to date, since we approved this, town meeting has approved about over $13 million worth of CPC spending. The finer print page provides a little bit more detail. It gives the high-level description of what the article was, and then I created, for my own purposes, a little sub-bullet, subcategories, like, this article paid for, funded a building, whether it be senior center office building, and so forth, or paid for some cemetery activities, or money to land trust, or for monuments, or for record storages, or for the trails, right? Trails either come from recreation or open space some years. So those are just the big categories that I picked out from my mind. And that just summarizes all of the articles in those finer buckets to get a better handle as to where the money's going. And then the last page is the one that's relevant to this article. I just sorted out all of the articles where we spent money on cemetery restoration and this perpetual $9,500 a year restoration thing. And it just shows, over the last 20 years, we put $181,000 into cemetery restoration. And again, while I think that it's a worthy project and it's an appropriate expenditure of the money, the perpetual, we got to go find something to fix in the cemetery because people just keep giving us $9,500 a year, and we'll keep breaking it off at that level so we can keep working with one firm versus, having to bid it out to multiple firms and see if we can get someone else to do it at a, better efficiency and so forth is where I get concerned. And at the same time, it starts to say to me, if we keep spending that amount of money out of CPC to maintain or improve cemetery, maybe there's a fundamental issue over there. Because everyone bought into that, they have the grave sites, they have perpetual care. Maybe there's, maybe a set of cemetery commissioners versus have the board of selectmen act in that role. Some other mechanism to maybe better care for the cemetery and find other ways and take ownership of some of that care than we have been doing in the past.
Mike, do you know if there was no action, no funds in the year 2012
So there was nothing in, 2012 is a funny year. There was nothing in the database for 2012, and I have gone on the town's website to look for the warrant for 2012, and I can't find a 2012 annual town meeting warrant on the website. So I do need to, go down to the town clerk's
So let me
office
ask you,
and see if
is
there's
that
something.
fiscal year 2012? Is that what you mean? I have the book here. Since I do them all, I have every one of them going back to like 2006.
So there wasn't anything in the database, I couldn't find a warrant article, go back and find out whether someone just didn't upload it that year, or if we just didn't expend anything
We
that
did
year.
the Tillier paper, the memorial conference rooms, administration, trail bridges, debt service, like we just said. I'm looking to see if there's any other community preservation ones, and I'm just looking right at the,
So that's the 2012 annual town meeting.
yeah, right here, our report for fiscal year 2012.
If you can send that to me, I'll add it into, what I have there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I can do that.
Also, Mike, is it still the responsibility of the DPW to do the maintenance, the mowing, the raking, backfilling if there was a lot of rain, et cetera? And is it, if so or not, is it still the DPW director's responsibility to show possible sites to the survivors? That used to be the case. In fact, there was a rule that could mean that, well, there was a rule that you had to fill out a line before you could start another line. And that meant, at least one time, according to the DPW director at that time, that a deceased married couple were separated, one at the end of one line and the other at the head of the subsequent line. Do you know anything about how that's organized now and who is holding responsibility?
No,
So I know that DPW does maintain the cemeteries there, along with all their other activities. So it's hard for them to dedicate somebody, versus maybe a couple of sewer, cemetery commissioners who, down there and doing their own little cleanup and stuff. So they do what they can to keep it clean, but, monument restoration, I don't know where you go with that, and further cleaning. And I do know for purchase, if you want to purchase a graves site, because I purchased mine a few years back, you do talk to the DPW, and they do show you what's available out there. And they do try to fill out rows in sequential order versus just scatter people all over the place, based on the conversation when I was looking to purchase a plot there.
Thank you.
so Wally, do you want to come up and just let us know your role tonight?
Hi, so we meet again. Hi. My name is Wally Hersey. Right now, I'm representing the CPC for the, if I talk funny, I knocked a tooth out with a cabinet door last night, so I sound like Daffy Duck, so. I am representing the CPC to answer any questions you have. And Mike, just to address the concerns with the gravestone, I totally understand exactly what you're saying. About a year and a half ago on the Historic Commission, which I'm also a member of, we ran into an issue with finding records for the cemetery, and finding correct records and complete records, and they were scattered all over the place, and we didn't know where they were. So Bill Barnsley, who's a member of the committee also, who also wrote a book on the old burial ground and everybody who's planted there, went and did some research, and we found very little. So what we ended up doing was deciding that we had to augment the town records and get those records put together in a proper way. To do that, we had to read the stones, and the stones have been neglected for over 150 years. That you could not read them. And the other thing is, you can't read them. They're degrading because of the algae and everything on those. They had to be clean. So, getting back to the stones themselves, for the past so many years, Bob Breer has come in and has hired the Fannons to come in and do, because they're museum conservators, and they take the money and they will actually take the damaged stones, the broken stones, and put them back together and reset them. That's a whole different ballgame. That what you talk, that's there. You're paying for a museum quality conservation. We did this the past year. They also, the same company came into the Milestone in Sturbridge that was old. They put it together with that. They don't do basic cleaning. They'll clean the stone that's broken. So, knowing that we're spending an awful lot of money with doing the conservatorship of them and repairing the broken stones, I decided last year what I would do is to form a group to do basic cleaning and to restore the stones and prevent them from degrading any further and to glean and harvest the information off it for the town records. We started the Sturbridge Gravestone Keepers last summer. We did that with the intention within a couple of years of doing what the Fannons do now. Because most communities use a volunteer organization. There's lots of trainings around it to do comparable work, to repair their stones like the Fannons do. So I hear what Mike is saying, $180,000 over 20 years is a great deal of money, but that was the only recourse you had over the past 20 years. There weren't volunteers, there weren't people out there being trained. It's only in the past maybe 10 years that you've seen this volunteerism and the courses being taught to people to train them and to do this in a proper way. So we did this last year. As you drive in the middle section of the cemetery, that middle road, the entire section on your left, from top to bottom, we did. There's over 400, almost close to 500 stones we cleaned, and took the information, put it on a spreadsheet. With that, we'll give to Heather Blakely at the DPW. Back in the 1980s, the Cemetery Commission was disbanded for whatever reason and passed on to the cemetery. They don't do so much perpetual care except for mowing and cleaning debris. They don't take care of the stones or anything like that. If there's something out of place or whatever, they'll take care of it. Leaning stones over the years, Brian Kerboy has said that they've straightened up some leaning ones and taken care of that. But I just wanted to let you know that that's the intent, is to get away from hiring people to do the conservatorship and repairing the fractured stones and having it done as a home-based thing with volunteers.
Wally, I watched, you did a presentation not long ago to the Conservation Commission. You
Yes,
demonstrated what you're doing to clean the stones and the very simple process you go through.
Yes,
And all
it
of a
is.
sudden, an unreadable stone is almost white.
Yes.
And it's a very low, how shall I say, a low impact or a low, minimal effort to get a tremendous result. Is that what you're talking about now?
That's what we're
Because
doing.
if we could watch, if I could recommend that if we know what date that meeting was, I would recommend people go back
you
and
wanna
watch it,
share
because
this,
I
you can.
watched it, and I was like, wow, someone's finally figured this out.
But that's technique. I think one of the things I think I heard Mike mention is that it's, every year we've gone with $9,500 because it keeps us below the threshold of having to go out for bids. And we're hiring the same person over and over again without getting to see if there are lower cost alternatives.
And that's excellent idea. You wanted to have something like this going out to the lowest bidder. However, with the Fannons are giving us a deal. Because if you went to a museum quality conservator, and that's what they are, you'll be paying a lot more for what they do. And because they've been with us so long and they know Bob Greer so well, they're giving them the family rate. And that's essentially what it is. So I don't think you're going to find anybody cheaper. However, what you want to do is you want to get away from that fiscal problem every year with spending that much money. And I think in the next 24 to 36 months, that may happen once the money we're asking for tonight for the gravestone cleaners will get us through the rest of the project. It's a 3-year project, 1 year last year, this year, and next year. And we're also doing the old burial ground for Bob Greer for the 250th anniversary. So I think that when that is done, when that is completed, then you'll have more volunteers being trained to do actual conservatorship, and we will get away from that $9,500, $9,700 a year. All you're doing is paying for materials then. The labor is free. And that's what that is. I just want to separate the conservatorship with the restoration and preservation, and that's it. And I totally understand the money. We don't want that.
Why didn't you just go out for 3 bids? And then this bid was the lowest bid, and then you can say to somebody, I went out for 3 bids and they're the best, and case closed. You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
good point.
You know, then we don't have to worry about talking about it.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. I don't know, Bob has started this thing along, I don't know who's doing museum conservatorship right now, doing that. I do know an awful lot of people are out there, have been trained and are doing the same work they do, and they're volunteers, and they're using, and there's, either the community or through volunteer donations are being paid for supplies.
Is this a historical cemetery?
Yes, it is. It's one of the historical things the historical commission did with their,
And there's no more, anybody else being buried there, or is it capped out?
oh, no, we're talking about the North Cemetery. The old burial ground, there's nobody else being buried there, that's shut down. But we're talking, this is the North Cemetery is where the concentration
And
is now.
they're still using that, it's been still very active?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's still-
It only has a few more years left, keep that in mind. It only has like another 5 to 10 years left in it before we have to find another home. So, and that's very important to, we'll acknowledge that now. But you're right, the old burial grounds were shut down many years ago. But the North Cemetery, the end of Maple Street here, is still quite active. In fact, the other day, yesterday there was a funeral there in the morning.
St. Anne's.
Is there an online reference to where people are buried at the North Cemetery?
Good question. We didn't have any location of where people were and what things were happening. So what I did last year, I went down to see Heather, and they gave me a paper map of 1873, the surveying, with all the lot numbers on it.
Oh.
And when we cleaned them all, by the way, before I go any further, on the 27th of this month, I'm giving a talk on this entire process and what we did in the photos and stuff, above and beyond what you saw at the Conservation Commission at the Public House of the Historic Society. So write that down in your calendars, 7 o'clock. And there's snacks. So, there was a map. So the map was no names on it, just lot numbers. So when we went through and I pasted it all off last summer, and as we cleaned them all, I filled in all the names. And then I found a book of deeds, and I didn't have any anchor points, so I found the anchor point, let's say, lot 625, I said, and I have it on here as being that guy named Pelson. I said, he's got to be on that when I look at the deed, and it was him and another person, and they were both in that lot there. And I found other deeds that correlated to what we have. So we have all the names in that first section. They're all cleaned, all the data's cleaned, and all the locations, and all the names and everything else is something that the town has never had before. The locations were determined. There were 3 empty lots. Plots are individual graves, lots are larger places like that didn't have any stones on them except for, it had one, there's 4 of them. One had 2. And they were common graves, pauper graves, they used to call them. And there's also, I found another section of pauper graves that had no names elsewhere. And you can understand, I spent 6 months in the vault downstairs, not for bad behavior, but for doing research on the cemeteries back to 1828. And I did the history of the entire cemetery and the cemetery commissions, and I found that there's a whole bunch of people buried in those spaces, and they have their names recorded, but there's no stones. So that to answer your question, yes, we're getting that way. And this year, when we do the far section, the oldest section of the North Cemetery, we'll take that data in. I just walked it this past weekend down there to do an assessment for the coming year. There's an awful lot of damaged stones down there. There's some that were just recently broken. So there's work to be done besides the cleaning, and there's a lot of leaning stones that Brian Kerboy said that the DPW may be able to help straighten, but they're up to their eyeballs with work as it is. They really don't have the time for that.
To echo a point Jim made, so based on what you just said, you're saying fiscal year 27 will be the last year you need money to do any type of restoration because it's going to be volunteer after other than materials.
That hasn't gone before Bob Brewer yet, okay? But my goal was to have people trained volunteer-wise, that we have volunteers now. We don't have a whole bunch of them, we have like a dozen and a half volunteers, but have those people there and anybody else that wants to be trained to do the conservatorship that the Fannons are doing now. And if we can get to that point, after we do the basic cleaning and all that sort of stuff, and we can be trained, Ross Weaver is a gentleman from Sutton who trained me, and he does this. We can take care of that, and that will not have to be done any longer.
So I appreciate
there's a plan.
the feedback here, and the end, the goal to kind of bring this to an end. But more importantly, the efforts to kind of take it in-house, so to speak, and get done there. So I'll be happy to volunteer and help you out. I think it's a fantastic project, and
Love to have
I
you.
do a lot of genealogy. I'd love to help you out wherever you can. Kathy, a question about the website. There's a site called findagrave.com. I know that,
Yeah, 'cause my hometown has it, that's how I knew about that.
the old burial ground has been photographed, there's records in the library, but you go up there, all the stones and all the stuff are in there. I think many of them are done up at North Cemetery as well. They may not give you an exact, sometimes if you have the information in there, you can put an exact plot number, section, row number, whatever else, if the person that's uploading the data in there has it, but that's a site that, you can go. I know the old burial ground. There was a gentleman that did that photographed that a while back, and there's records in the library as well as on the website.
I just met with Ty and Bond, the engineers, with Gene Bond, at a Zoom meeting the other day, because they have, I just found this out after doing all this work. I found out Mark, I forget his last name, the assistant DPW director left, but before he did, he worked with Ty and Bond to do all the work that we're doing now. But what we're doing now, we're starting the basic work of using their app for Ty and Bond to take, with the map they have digitized there, and to take photographs of the stone with the app they have on their iPad there, to enter it into data in, because I'm getting writer's cramp right now, and get the data in, get the photos in, and upload it to the cloud, and have all that publicly available for everybody. I've been sending stuff to Find a Grave all winter long, photos from the North Cemetery. I got a lot more to do, because I took those photographs as well, but that's where we're heading, and I'm trying to steer us in that direction. And as a volunteer effort, I think that we're doing pretty good so far.
All right.
So I was skeptical to begin with. I appreciate the conversation, so I'd be happy to make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve Article 5 as written.
Second.
Okay, Kathy, I'll go with, so,
No, it
No,
was-
it was MC.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Kathy can do it.
Nope,
So-
I got MCP.
MCP. So one thing I forgot to mention, I just want to note it before we take the vote, that the warrant document, the file we're using is a Word file entitled Warrant ATM 2025-0227, because I'm expecting additional modified ones. So I just want to make sure for the record. It's warrant, space ATM, space 2025-0227, which is the date I got it. So,
Kevin, there actually might be some numbering changes. I think Barbara had mentioned to you, we had to add a formality on a CPC article. So
we're
the
skipping the
content
ones that,
won't change. Yeah,
that had things, but I'm expecting, newer, updated versions of that, because actually Barbara also mentioned there were two articles. One, I think, goes on the annual, one goes on the special that I
Yes.
don't have yet, so.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
That's why I wanted to note the record. So don't go changing the article numbers on me.
Well, unfortunately, I may have, I could stick them at the end, I guess. Okay.
Okay, so we've taken care of Article 5.
You can vote.
Oh, we didn't vote, yeah, sorry, because I got into all the technical details, because I forgot to do that at the beginning. Sorry about that. So all those in favor of Article 5? And that's 7-0, great.
I
Okay,
had a quick question for Wally. Historical, you're gonna have that at the public house. I've watched those on TV, some of them. Sometimes the sound isn't as clear as it could be. Can anybody go to that, or do you have to be a member of the
They're free,
society?
they're totally for the public. And I was going to suggest that you all go there, because you'd learn so much more about the cemetery and what this whole debacle is
What was
about.
that date again?
It's the 27th,
You
7
guys have a
o'clock.
finance committee meeting, and I'll be out of town that night, so.
Oh, is that a Thursday?
yeah,
It's a Thursday night, yeah.
But it'll be on,
It'll be video, yeah, Steve usually does it, it's usually on there.
Oh, okay.
And I'll also make, after the fact, I have the PowerPoint, and I'll share that with you as well. I'll pass it on to Robin, and Robin can make it available to you. So you can see, there's no volume with that, there's just, you'll see the facts and the photos.
okay, thank you. Article 6.
Just a general question. The wordings, it says they will appropriate from such and such a historic fund, an undesignated fund. Are these funds that have money in it to appropriate?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, they're in the back of the book, in the report.
okay.
And Jim's actually got some updated numbers.
Handwritten stuff is the balances as of the end of February at the bottom for each of the categories.
That's, thank you. Okay,
If you go back to the first page,
I want that. Not right now.
we collect about 600,000 a year. The money that comes in from the taxes for CPC, a percent goes to these four funds, and there's cash in there.
That's one of the articles I think we're adding, because technically, we were supposed to have an article that says we're allocating X percentages of our collections to these funds.
Maybe that's what Article 2 was intending to do.
No,
No.
no, that's the article, Kevin, that's one of the two articles you don't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we just learned that we should have been doing that all along, and whoops. We just did it, we did it as a practice, but not as a formality. Okay, Article 6, general trail enhancements. This is just, reads as funds to maintain the existing trails. Right? And it doesn't seem to do any additional work, is that correct? Do you know?
For this particular article, yes, that's true. It's to maintain what we've already have, that the Trail Committee already has in place, and to, but nothing, there's nothing new with this particular article, no.
An enhancement usually means
Yeah,
added.
Same thing right here.
Maintenance means maintain what
Actually,
you
it
have.
is, it's, no, there's,
66,000.
you're actually right. The syntax is specific in this, because enhancing is taking existing work that's done and making it better. And that's the reason Tom explained it to me. It's not, you're not adding anything new, you're not maintaining it as one would maintain something. It's a
Tweener, huh?
It's a tweener, it's enhancing it, so, and with that language there, it qualifies for the CPC.
Making what we have better.
Yes, making what we have better, and that's exactly right.
They go out and they buy some sand, they buy some gravel, they fill in,
Yeah.
signage or whatever, miscellaneous pieces that the trail
Yes.
volunteers.
But you have to use the word
volunteers do.
enhancement.
That was chosen purposely, yeah.
Is there a reason why, like last year it was 66,000 and this year is 53, which I'm fine with, but I mean,
I think it was because there was less to enhance. And that sounds so obvious, but I think there
that's
was,
good.
because last year they caught up with an awful lot of things that hadn't been done, and that was the reason why.
great, thank you.
Good question.
Okay. Any other questions related to Article 6? Do I have a motion to accept Article 6? Jim? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Mike? Any further comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0. Okay.
Motion to recommend, not accept. Motion to recommend, not a motion to accept.
Accept the articles written?
We recommend.
Recommend to town
Oh.
meeting that we approve the article as written.
Yes.
I see. I know you know the correct verbiage for all of our votes. You have
It'll
those
be
all-
reflected properly in a minute.
I know, I know.
Melissa's got it too.
But I'm glad you clarified that, because the minutes might show something different, but we agreed on that verbiage last year, that they were all going to read the same way. Okay, Article 7, Community Preservation, 469A, Trail and Bridge Project. This has multiple sources of funding, and I've given you late this afternoon, the actual verbiage that the bond council had sent. There is a typo in the bond council thing, but we can just cross out.
To pay costs of,
Yeah, exactly, twice, yeah. But you can see the plan is for the full 2.2 million, we'll say, 300,000 is coming from the open space part of this community preservation, 700,000 from undesignated community preservation, and they'd like to borrow $1.245 million.
Kevin, if I could just jump in on that?
Sure.
I believe that this is one of the projects that Tom Chamberlain and Trails are going to be also applying for grant money through Mass Trails and a lot of the sources that they've been successful at getting grants. So this would be the maximum that would come out of CPA. There's hope, as I said, that they could get maybe a few $100,000 in grants, as they've been typically very successful in doing. This is a project that connects where the new parking lot is to the trails. It comes out around the restaurant areas. The hope is that it works toward both enhancing the trails and as well as encouraging economic development and providing a connection from the trails to the local shops where someone can come off and stop and have a coffee, for example, or walk out from a restaurant. This project originally, there had been some preliminary work that was donated through the students at WPI, in some very preliminary design phases, and we've been moving forward since then, and now we're at the point of looking at the major project.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Well,
Which state agencies have to clear this? Department of Natural Resources?
Yeah, they're involved, yes, there's, Department of Natural Resources has been involved, DCR, and there's also been, I saw a letter come across as far as the native indigenous peoples, they also had to be consulted as well, because they're dealing with the banks of the river and the rivers as well. So all the different state agencies have been involved as well.
EP as well?
Oh, yes. They have to, because they're so close to the National Grid area there, they're all, where the bridge is going to go across, and where the construction is going to be done, it's going to be very, very close to that substation as well there. So, the Department of Public Utilities is aware, as is National Grid.
But we don't have any, like, shovel-ready designs, where this is part of these funds, are to get to the shovel-ready point.
Robin, can
Yes.
you? Yes.
We have just preliminary work, but not, and I think some preliminary survey work may have been done, but we have not, this is to get the full design scope.
Okay.
and if we don't do the bridge, then somebody doesn't go from the parking lot down the hill to the bridge and then go wherever they go, and then suppose they come back up the hill through the parking lot and then go to the Duck for a beer? I mean, what happens if we don't have the bridge, if we don't do this?
They just have to go down to where, around, where the Thai place is and that bridge there.
This ties the trail, the Riverlands Trail with the downtown part of Fiskdale.
Sawmill, Sawgrass.
And it coordinates really, really well with the new parking lot that went in there, because now it takes the traffic that's coming off the trails across from Old Sturbridge Village, because they can take those folks there, and also bring people down the trail and over the bridge into the downtown. It also takes the walking traffic that's coming down through Fiskdale and takes them that way, and over the bridge, and enjoy the river, and into the Riverlands Trail.
So without the bridge, if I'm coming from, say, 84, up the village, through the village area, I get to the end of the village, I get to the river, the trail would stop. The trail picks up on the other side, though, where the parking lot is, and it continues from there? So you just don't connect the path on either side of the river?
Actually, what happens is Brad is in the other room at the Trails Committee right now. He said, if you have any questions, I'll grab him. But the Riverlands Trail is coming from where Old Sturbridge Village parking lot is across the street from Stallion Hill Road, and coming down that way alongside the river. And then it's going to cross over into the parking lot on Route 20 for downtown traffic. That's not going to be part of the trail so much when it gets into the parking lot and up onto Route 20. That's just giving you access to Fiskdale and the shops and the restaurants and stuff like that. And it also gives access to the trail from Fiskdale for people parking and going that way. They cross the river and they into the trail. Now they're going to be able to go on the rest of the trail all the way to Holland Road, hopefully, because that's also in here too. That's another extension of the Trail Committee.
From what I recall from previous proposals, that parking lot that we built is the only access that the town has to the riverfront property that it owns along that stretch. In other words, other than that parking lot, all the businesses along there are privately owned, which prevents access to the riverfront on that side of the river. So that's why we bought the parking lot. Why the old Pink Haven Hotel.
The parking lot was also designed to provide parking for those that are shopping in the
Yes.
area.
Gave us access to the
was
substantial
part of the
riverfront.
selling
That
point.
was part of the selling point. We otherwise wouldn't have had it.
If I may, the parking is for the restaurants, but it's also for people to use that as a starting point or an ending point. But realistically, yes, the parking lot was sort of a multi-purpose, multi-benefit kind of a situation. Kevin, just to follow up on your plans on shovel ready, I think that the money that we got in '23 from ATM had done some of the preliminary boring work. Some of that early engineering work has been done. So it's not the shovel-ready stuff, but just to follow up from that '23 money, we did some early on engineering stuff, borings and whatnot.
Do we have any
But yeah,
numbers?
we had to get support from the private businesses to be able to even get back there and do that, along that national grid easement that runs back there.
Has anybody researched what the recurring costs will be on this? There obviously has to be some, considering it's gonna be going across a river, and it's gonna be subject to wear and tear, and there's gonna be costs that are gonna be incurred every year to maintain it in the original condition. I'm just curious if there's been any research that's been in that regard, of what the perpetual costs are gonna be to maintain this for the next umpteen years or decades.
You know, I can't speak that I know that for sure, but when they put the Caldecott Bridge up near Westville Dam, and they put that in, 20 years ago now, you know, it's not required hardly any maintenance at all, because it's the way its construction is over the river. As far as that's a question that Brad Goodwin could be addressed with Brad, and you want me, I can get him and he can answer
Yeah,
the
please
question.
bring them in, because
Okay.
I have a lot of concerns that I'd like to
Wait a
do
minute, I
too.
still have to understand what the trails are on that side, but you can
Very
bring
good,
it.
hold on one second.
And there was, I recall, and it got sold privately several years ago. A big parcel up there that went to a private buyer for development that the town had its eye on, conservation land, that would have run down to the river from that side. If you know what I'm talking about.
I kind
Holland
of
Road.
recollect it, yeah.
Holland Road, I forget the name of the street. It was a substantial piece of property.
Robin, did you say possible grants $200,000?
That's what I heard, yeah.
We can get grants through, according to Tom gets grants through Mass Trails, they can be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. They tend to be large-scale grants.
I think I need to be 10 times that, but okay.
Yeah, all right.
So I can get myself oriented. So if I'm in the new parking lot, or I walk over this bridge, assuming it ever got built, and I'm in that section, where does the trail along the Riverlands go? Is this on this side, on the side where the shops are?
No,
and-
it's-
Or is it all on the other side up by Stallion Hill Road?
Yeah, so if you walk, everybody, Brandon Goodwin, Trails Committee. So if you walk into the parking lot and you're facing towards the river, the trail will go off to the left and gravitate to the left, and then you'll hit an area where it's going to come to the river, and that's where the crossing would be to the Riverlands.
And if I didn't have the bridge in place, and we're talking about a trail, I come to Old Sturbridge Village, I get to Stallion Hill Road, and I continue on the Riverlands Trail, it's not like the bridge connects to the trail and there's a gap there. The trail continues along the Riverlands by the Stallion Hill Road side of things, correct?
Yeah, so the way
The
to think.
bridge just takes me over to the parking lot and gets me to the shops at,
Yeah, so the Riverlands property basically runs, from our perspective, runs from Old Sturbridge Village all the way to Holland Road and runs along the entire commercial district. The end vision is that there'll be a trail all the way along on the wooded side, and you'll have, 3 touch points. You'll have at the village, behind, the old TJ's, you'll have Holland Road, and then you'll have the bridge in the middle, in the middle of the commercial district. And that's it. Does that make sense?
May I,
Just out of curiosity, I mentioned this, I'm sorry, there's land above that on the side of the river that we had an interest in a few years ago, and ended up going to a private developer. Is there any conversation about, and it's never been developed, and we're talking like 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, you're talking, yeah, so that's,
Is there any talk about going back to that developer and see if they're interested?
there's a lot of talk about going back to that developer and see if they're interested.
Remember, they spent $800,000 or $900,000 for that, and they did nothing.
Yeah, we talked to Robin about that a number of times. It's one of those properties, if you're talking the bigger picture of the trail system and doing other recreational activities in town, that's a high-value property for stuff like that. Robin has mentioned a number of times she would, love to be able to figure out how to get a hold of that property, but I think this caution in terms of how to approach it from the town's perspective and so on, so.
They did some very insignificant clearing, and then they disappeared.
But, yeah,
It's an ideal property.
Oh, sorry, Robin, I'm speaking for you. I didn't even know you were on. Hey.
No, don't think you're absolutely right, no, it is, it's an ideal property.
Still, I was.
Yeah, I just had a question. Are there people who have used the trails that have complained about not having that access that the bridge would offer? Or, I'm just curious how this idea came about.
Yeah, so, the river, so one of the premises of our trail master plan is how do you drive ecotourism in town? And so that piece of it is very important to the committee in terms of connecting the trail systems to, restaurants and hotels and so on and so forth. So, and because of the location of the Riverlands and trying to break up how you access that property, that was the thinking, and so that's the short of it. The other side of that now, which is interesting, is the Riverlands has what we call flow trails on it, and it has 3 to 5 miles of flow trails, which are, special mountain biking, running trails with berms and stuff they're narrow, but, and there are people traveling from Boston to use those. We have people traveling from all over right now to use our trails. So it's an interesting thing, and so we are trying to thoughtfully have a diverse trail system where some properties are more wooded, some are a little more mountain bike, some are specific to handicap, and trying to break that up so that we're bringing in a lot of different people into the town for that reason.
Thank you.
If I could add one thing, about 15 years ago, I was writing a blog in town at the time. I was thinking out loud in Sturbridge, and one of the posts I had done, which got an awful lot of traffic and an awful lot of quoting, was I talked about the Riverlands at the time. And one of the things I've written about, wouldn't it be nice to have a bridge going across the river? And for, number one, to augment the shopping, the crowd and everything else, and to do that, it's just a question of where to put it. At the time, we had no access across the river to the trail. And at the time, the trails hadn't really been built. So, but the comments that were made, this is 15 years ago, people said that would be a wonderful thing at the time. And just the people, the audience there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else before I start jumping in?
I was gonna say, besides the bridge, that we also have to do trails also to accommodate the bridge, right?
So we have the trail,
You have an existing trail, then you have the bridge, then you have to create a trail to go to the parking lot and.
on the commercial, on the Route 20 side, yes. And but that trail is the access path to get out there to put the bridge in place. So once, in concept, you have to put, log mats in place to get out there and so on and so forth, put the abutments in place, put the bridge in place, and as you pull out, you'll start to, clean everything up and fix the trail on the way out and have a trail to the parking lot.
Okay. So my concerns, I guess, are a little more macro in that, for I don't know how many years now, there's been lots of great work and, trails have been developed all over town and, they do get positive press and good thing like that. But it seems from a third-party viewpoint that you've kind of reached the ability to handle your enhancements, to use the word we just learned. The property off of Fisk Hill is sitting 2 years now, nothing's been done to it. We bought it, nothing happened. We built a parking lot, nothing happened. It seems like the limits of the capacity of the volunteer force have been hit. And now we want to add more. I know the goal has been expressed, I think it was in one of our meetings last year, that we want to get to 50 miles of trails. And we're at 33, and we've seemed to hit our capacity to be able to handle it.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of priorities. I think we cycle in and out of projects. And so this bridge project actually would mostly be done by non-committee members. So it's not something that, while we are managing the work to do it, we are not the labor.
Correct, but you will have to maintain it after it's built and those constructors go away.
Yeah, well, we are, in the last 2 years, we've actually started a subcommittee on the committee that just focuses on maintenance. And they're actually chomping at the bit for more. So they're actually gonna start, doing, smaller construction projects because there's maintaining the trails once they're in place. Because we're doing them in a sustainable manner, we don't have a lot of runoff. We don't have a lot of problems with our trails. Lately, the problem we've had with our trails is, as on Plimpton, the caterpillars, we have trees dropping left, right, and center. Stuff like that is more of a pain. Or the windstorms, where they're dropping trees on all the properties. And that's the stuff we go in right away, clean them up, and get the trees out, but in terms of regular maintenance, that's not a concern
Well,
for us.
I'm gonna go back to Fisk Hill again, and just because it's sitting there, it was promised to the town, sold to the town, and we funded it, and it's basically unusable in X amount of years later.
Yeah,
I mean, so,
no, it's a fair, and with that, we have acknowledged that Fisk Hill is one of the priorities in terms of getting a piece of trail in there. We have worked on it each year to try and come up with ways to do that effectively. And that property is a little more unique in the sense that the way that was logged did a lot of damage to the property, and the water that's retaining in certain areas is you know probably better than anyone. There's a lot of water in there, and so we are adjusting our plan on how to get around that property and put a trail in.
and just for full disclosure, I think you're hitting, because I live almost directly across the street, but it has really nothing to do with what my point is. It just seems to be symptomatic of the inability to continue to do enhancements with the way we do it now.
If I could jump in on that, I think that one's not so much a lack of capacity as opposed to challenges with the property itself. We've also got adjacent properties that might be available to us to try to expand use and do something kind of creative and different with Fisk Hill. We've run a lot of ideas around. It has not been because we just don't have the volunteers. And I will say the Trails Committee has actually expanded this year. We've added associate members, we've added volunteer coordinators. So I see your concern, Kevin, if you take on too much and you don't have those volunteers to maintain it, you have a nightmare. Fisk Hill, I just don't believe is a lack of capacity to take on more. It's just the challenges of the property. And we're looking at a big picture of what do we want to do there? What do we need? What are we missing in town? And can Fisk Hill be a place for that before we committed to something and then can't pull back, or something more applicable given the challenges with the water and whatnot?
That sounds like we rushed to buy a piece of property over there because it looked good on paper, but we didn't fully look into the property to see if it really can be used for the purpose that we're trying to do there. And
I would say,
could have
I think
studied it a little bit more before
we know. So I walked that property quite a bit. I've probably been in there 20 times, and I've spent 20 to 30 hours in there with tractors clearing trail and making sure that we have initial loops and so on. If we're talking Fisk Hill specifically, to Robin's point, there are ideas about connecting down to Hall Road and other things that make that property unique and so on. So that aspect of it, yeah. And I think candidly, we just have to spend a little more time in there to get the trail that we want to get in built.
Why don't we just leave it open land? We realize the mistake, there's water, nothing's going on, just leave it like it is and just let it grow natural and nobody does anything on it and it's beautiful.
I mean, if people push back on wanting a trail, and we're planning to move that trail forward. If people decide they don't want a trail there, that's fine. It's not something that.
As I recall, we were competing with a private interest that wanted to buy that property.
Oh, yeah, nut farmer.
Wanted to buy the property, so we had to
Both
do,
ways.
if we wanted it, we had to
But I guess the
strike the
question
bargain at the time, otherwise it would have gone away.
I think sorry, but from my perspective, we have 6 or 7 properties we're working on in town, and we do prioritize and cycle in and out. You go through phases. You do build a trail on a property, and you step away, let it settle in, work on another property, and so on. And so, I guess, how does that play into the Riverlands conversation or the bridge?
Well, I'm talking about, the capacity to maintain what we have, and if we're going to continue to expand, the ability to maintain that expansion. That's where what my point was. It wasn't any particular criticism about Fisk Hill.
So the way that we focus on each property is that we look at the property and build a certain amount of trail of a certain type. And sometimes we build 1 or 2 types on that property, sometimes it's just 1. And some of the properties like Lead Mine are unique because a lot of that trail existed. Others we're putting single track in and so on. The building is a hell of a lot harder, than the maintaining. When we get to 50, with the properties we have, when we get to 50 miles of trail, the maintenance piece will be less work than what we're doing now. On 50 miles, it'll be less work than what we're doing now on an annual basis.
So I guess we go back to this article, Kevin. I think,
I'm not done with my questions, though. I've got another point, unless you've got something related to that you want to do. I'm just looking for one document I need to just see what the number was.
So trail usage?
No, I don't. Real property tax. Okay, so my second bigger macro,
I had a question.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. We also have the Plimpton property. Has that ever had trails on it?
Yeah. There's,
I mean, I don't go over there.
yeah, there's 5 or 6 trails. I hike it once a week. It's mowed, it's cleared, it's, so yes. So that's, right now, the Fisk Hill one is the only one that we don't have. That and Shepherd are the 2 properties we don't have active trails on right now, that we have a parking lot on one, and we're gonna build on Fisk Hill, but the rest of the properties, Long Pond, Hines, Lead Mine, Plimpton, and Riverlands all have active trail systems on them that are being used heavily.
And that property coming down the hill would hit Hall Road, as I face it, to the left of where OFS is now.
Yes, yeah.
And I also heard somewhere, I saw it somewhere, that there's an interest in the dollhouse, the condemned property, the house.
So the conversations that were happening around that were, there's a big push in town for a dog park, and there's also a big push in town for younger kids to have a smaller bike park to ride or something like that, and a skills park is what they're called. And so a conversation was, because you have electricity and water there, and the historical group wants to save that building and use it as they said a Sturbridge museum at the time, is there a dual purpose for that? Because one of the problems with the dog park is if you don't have water, you can't do it. Because we've looked at a lot of places in town of how we could help, as the committee, to say, hey, because, having a place for someone to take their dog and go for a walk on one of the trail systems isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. But we don't have a lot of properties with water access.
I thought that house had been condemned.
Well, to speak on that house, I had brought up the idea of having the historical society look into the pact, because OFS has thought of wanting to get rid of it or whatever, and it had a very bad mold and very bad water leaks. But the thing is, but we put that off to the side for right now, because we're going to talk to there's been a change of management at OFS, and we're going to talk to them at a later date about what's going to happen with that, and if it's something that's within our budget, we could handle.
So,
I have been in touch with OFS. It's just a matter of working with new management and looking at what their long-term plans are.
so my second concern deals with, the tax burden on tax people. And in particular, this project would extend the life of the CPA if we were trying to actually rescind the CPA to take off that $300 roughly everybody pays additional on their taxes to fund it. Because if we borrow the funds using CPA monies, the CPA has to stay around long enough to pay those funds back. So if, people wanted a way to lower the tax burden on the taxpayers, one of the things you could do is do away with the CPA. Premium, I guess we'll call it.
or reduce the percentage, or
reduce the
3%, you can
yeah.
cut it down to a lower percentage.
You could, yeah. But my point being is that these type of projects with borrowing involved in CPA funds, they kind of extend the life and our inability to use that tool to lessen tax burdens. And I know we heard it on the floor of the town meeting last year. We hear it from members of the Board of Selectmen. I mean, you get people who ask you, what can we do about the tax rate? I'm just saying, I'm not pro or con, I'm just saying that this action of borrowing will extend the life of the CPA, and just be aware of that.
You have others?
No, that's the end of that.
Going on. Oh, let me ask another positive comment. When I just looked at the last, survey, Sturbridge survey, master town plan, we read again, I was really bored the other night, right? if you rate like the strengths of Sturbridge, okay, number one is Sturbridge Village, and fortunately, they got the $8 million, which is a good deal. Number two is historical character, good for the cemeteries, right? And open space. So the townspeople want it. They use it, it's good. And then the third is education, just is very important, obviously. But my point being is that what's the difference between open space and trails? We seem very intent on getting to that 50 versus like, they want open space. They didn't say trails, maybe that's part of the open space scenario. Plus, if I looked at a usage figure, and there's a lot of data here, so I might have gotten it wrong, and I do a trend line, it looks like the usage is like waning. And I don't know the difference between adjusted and not adjusted, but it looks like 64, 51, 46 the last 3 years. So if that's accurate, correct me if I'm wrong, because there's like 14 pages of single-space data here, and tried to analyze what it was. It seemed like usage is, say, even flat. We're adding more, it's flat. We assuming more people from New York, Maine, New Hampshire, wherever are gonna come in here because we're building more trails? Or to Kevin's point, do we finish what we have, do this, see where the growth pattern is, advertise it more, and we can put the bridge in or keep working on it and go from there. So that's my point.
Yeah, so we had an insane spike during COVID. The usage on the properties was off the charts. 100,000 people using all of our properties, and that was even before we we didn't have great, we monitored, but you couldn't get into many of the parking lots at the time. It was so heavily used. Yes, from COVID, the numbers have dropped.
The last 3 years.
But I think it's, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I don't have them with me, but I think it was in the 60 to 70,000 per year is what we've been consistent around, varying a little bit, but I can.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're seeing, and the intent, where the 30 to 50 miles came from, that leap from 30 to 50 is what, as part of our master plan, we were, the people that helped us develop that said, if you get to a 50-mile number, 50 miles in town of trails, that becomes a destination for people.
Yeah.
That was one of the priorities of the committee, is to use existing open space. The town purchased open space. We want to give people access to that open space, and that's why we're building a lot of these trails. But also, it does bring people in from different communities, and that's why we try to, we try to have diverse trail system, because you do get people that come in to hike or cross-country ski. It's very common to see out-of-state parking, Connecticut plates in the parking lots and stuff like that. So, whether you believe it or not, or whether it's whether it's something that you think is where Sturbridge should be spending their money is a different conversation than what the experts say is how you drive ecotourism into your town.
There's anecdotal evidence, no real hard facts, but tales that most of the parking, especially on the lead mine, is basically a commuter lot parking. It's the same car there all day, from 7 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I mean, because, anybody who leaves their car in a trail parking lot for a day is asking, I don't leave my car,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
What kind of people are using our trails if you're gonna make that statement there? I think it would be a nice place to leave it, given whatever, so. I hear your point about the 50, I would, and that says it's a destination for a group of people. I think in Sturbridge, we're trying to find, reasons to bring different groups, the folks who want to come to eat, the folks who want to use the village. 35 miles of trails should attract a lot of people. I don't know what the incremental amount is for the extra 15, how many people will come flooding into town for long stays in hotels and meals and so forth. But, your 35 is a good number, and if we can get to 50.
But it's not about if. That's not a problem. We're going to get to 50. I mean, that's, from a trails perspective, that we're going to get to 50. It's a matter of, to your point, the reason you get a certain amount of mileage is because people who hike or ride or run view that as a more of a worthwhile visit. They can go on one property one day, stay at a hotel, have dinner, go to another property the next day and do something different. That's sort of the intent of it. But, it's.
I would think 35 is attractive versus the 50, but I understand in that community, the 50 is the designation that really draws up. If I go back to this article here, I think as I look at this, $2 million is a big number, and it sounds like we're still early on in the phase, so this 2 million could be something more. And if we're getting some grant money towards this, I'd feel more comfortable. I don't get excited over the possibility of a $200,000 grant against a $2.2 million potential project there. I think there are a lot more grant opportunities out there, and, if we came back and said, hey, we need $1 million because we got $1 million from somebody else, I'd get a little more excited about the expenditure. But I just think $2 million for a bridge to connect to this parking lot and that section of Route 20, when we have some other connections, and we already have an existing trail system that continues in that area, whether we have the bridge or not, is, makes that trail functional there. So, and I also think there should be some type of annual maintenance inspection plan that needs to be worked in there. I think bridges become liabilities. As I look at DPW departments and transportation departments, they're all trying to eliminate bridges across the way, not add new bridges in here. So longer term, it does kind of bring a liability and a maintenance obligation back to us that we haven't fully thought through at this stage. So at least as we sit here today, I'm not comfortable recommending or myself spending my tax dollars for a $2 million bridge. I thought it was well less than this when this idea first came around. I was shocked at that number there. So I'm not supportive of this at this stage. Keep working on the other trails, and we've got everything wrapped up, and this one bridge becomes, the big final piece, and we've got the money, and we're more comfortable that it's really going to bring $2 million plus of economic benefit. I might be in a more supportive position.
So you'd pay the full 2 million then if we get the economic benefit? So the challenge with that is we get into a scenario where the grants are, if you don't have money, you don't get money. And so that's the biggest challenge we have with this. And so it's a real struggle when you have big projects like this. So I hear what you're saying, but it is a struggle.
My question is less financial, it's more perception. In your experience, is this going to be a unique enough feature in our trail system that almost like a novelty, without meaning that in a critical way? It will attract people because it's a nuance in the system that's kind of unique. All of a sudden you're on a trail and you cross a river to get, is that common in most trail systems? Or are we going to have something that's kind of a novel attraction?
Can I jump in on that one? Brandon, I'm going to jump in on that one.
Yep.
If we could. I think it's not so much the bridge on the trail that makes it unique. It's the fact that the bridge connects to a sort of a downtown commercial type district. Sturbridge has the unique beauty of having a Route 20 with all sorts of retail and quaint and charming businesses and restaurants and shops, as well as this beautiful road field. And this bridge,
I haven't either.
physically it connects with symbolically is kind of hard to find. That's sort of my perception of it as someone who didn't grow up in the town, but I can see the value of having something like that for town residents and visitors. So if we're talking about, getting the $2 million in return, no, we're probably not going to see a clear $2 million return, but is it a broader use for both? For example, the businesses have shown interest and support in this because there's some benefit to them. There's a general benefit of the people in town and quality of life. When we did a survey, just before I came, the survey was done of what the town wanted done with ARPA money. And to Ken's point, it was open space and recreation. So, sometimes we're looking at things, we're questioning, is it a good use of tax dollars? Yes, there's some economic return, but I also think the question is, what is the return? What is it that people are willing to have their tax dollars used for, their CPC funds in this case? And I think that this is just really celebrates a unique thing that Sturbridge has, which is sort of that dichotomy of that very, charming, rural, quaint shops, and that little section there is the most walkable section of town, of a downtown that we have. And this actually allows you to go right from those trails to that. So, yeah, I agree, it's a lot, but I think that the general benefit and feel to put this forward to the people, I think it's going to have a positive reaction.
I have a couple of them actually specific to the borrowing then. So I just want to make sure I'm correct. In borrowing this, we're actually borrowing against future CPA revenues, and we don't have to worry about Prop 2.5 and overrides.
I do not believe this gets hit with connects to Prop 2.5 at all.
It would go in future years, end up in Article 3, just like we've done in those other borrowings
Right.
against CPC.
Right.
The debt service.
I just want to make sure that's 100% my understanding to where it's going. So, how long are we looking to pay this over? 10 years, 20 years, 40 years?
That I cannot answer.
And what
That
are,
will be another question we'll have to get.
and what are we talking the impact on taxpayers?
It doesn't impact from the standpoint of it's still out of the same CPC funding. Whatever CPC,
But, I mean, do you have, I mean, that's an impact to taxpayers. Taxpayers are paying that.
right, but it's not going to increase what CPC's
We'd be paying the same CPC
Right.
3% rate that
Right.
we're doing.
regardless.
It just says, of the CPC funds we have coming in, the available funds to
Yeah,
fund
I guess-
trail maintenance or whatever else decreases because we're making debt and interest payments against this.
I guess where I'm going is more the actuarial side of it. Do we foresee the revenue existing to fund the future debt obligation?
Unless you are going to not collect that same percentage. But, I mean, basically, our growth, we're not losing population, we're not losing homes, we're not losing residents, we don't have vacant homes to say that we're not going to be bringing in as much.
That's
So-
interest, okay, so that's,
Theoretically, that whatever percentage we're collecting, we would continue to collect unless the town chose not to do that. And that's, you know, if that's the case, then you would never borrow anything from CPC because you would never know what the future is.
That was sort of my point with my earlier thing, is that,
Right.
yeah.
No, I understand that, but I mean, that's, you know, that's, again, it would put you in a position that you wouldn't borrow if,
Well, I mean, it would probably be just like the water tank last year, that you borrow on against the CPC, but the town as a whole is the borrower of last resort. The bank's coming back for that money, it's coming to the town, whether the CPC funds are there or not.
so Kevin, let's approach it this way. If I look at, for FY '24, between the state contribution, the $700,000 we collected in taxes locally, and the $120,000 in interest, we had about $1 million of income coming into the fund that year. FY '25, a little less state money,
You think that's gonna go down to zero?
and a little less interest income. Again, we had about $1 million. So let's say we get $1 million worth of CPC money coming in every year. If I look at Article 4, we've got, I'm gonna work backwards. You got $80,000 for town hall debt, we got $25,000 for recreation court, so there's $100,000, there's $36,000 for Heinz Farm, $136,50. We got, you know, just short of $200,000 of that $1 million that we're spending just to pay off the borrowing articles. That doesn't include the senior centerpiece that we need to add in this year. So, yeah, you throw that in there, and it's a bigger chunk of money that's being used for large ticket items in the borrowings, and a little bit less to spend on these other articles that come up year after year, so.
I just wanna make sure that that is answered, because someone will ask that question.
and again, to the point of it's, you know, a little less to spend from what we get in next year. It's not like we spend every bit of what we get every year anyway. Those funds do exist. We have those sort of pots of money. That's why some of this is coming out of those funds that are sitting there. So it might mean less building up those funds because not every year do we use everything.
So then why not take more of those funds just to offset the borrowing costs?
Because I think there might be, you don't want to deplete those funds completely, because if there are projects that come along that you really wouldn't want to borrow for, let's say you had a $60,000 project, you're not going to want to go through the borrowing because you depleted that fund completely. So I think that, I can't speak for CPC, but that would certainly be my reasoning for something like that. You wouldn't want to deplete so that you're forced to borrow for everything. You would rather maybe leave certain amounts. I don't know how they came up with that breakdown, but I think the goal is to leave certain amounts of money still remaining there for projects. And I think you have the balances, I believe you guys passed those out earlier. And Barbara, I did just get a text, OSV and Heinz debt will be paid off by July of this year.
I'm sorry, what would we, what day?
OSV and Heinz,
Oh, okay,
so those two will fall off.
okay. All right. Anything else from anybody?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because what Mike said, I think if it came in for a couple million and it was something unique to get more people in. I was at a trails in Eureka, California. I thought it was a fictitious place, but it actually exists, right? But they have canopy trails. Sky, right? I've been a few places like that, Costa Rica, and it's cool. And you'd go 30 miles, 40 miles to go to that. It's really kind of a cool place, and you can keep the nature and a lot of other good stuff, right? That's something I'd say would make it unique. That would draw people in. The initial parking lot was in question. There was a lot of discussion, it was delayed, and we paid more money for it. So it was kind of like a parking lot to nowhere. I spent a lot of time in that area, all these cute shops and stuff. I don't see it, but okay, they're there. Now we're gonna have a bridge to a parking lot that goes nowhere for $2 million. So I'd like to spend the $2 million, but I'd like to spend the $2 million on something we can think about and say, okay, what are we gonna really bring people in? Not just a bridge to a parking lot. That, to me, is not gonna add any value. That's just my opinion.
No, I hear you. So we know right now, the Riverlands trails and that property is becoming very well known in the biking community. And they know that we're gonna do some more trails on there, and it was, someone ranked it on a site as like 8th, best site in Mass for riding. So, the town is becoming more well-known for hiking and biking because of the properties we have and the work we're doing. $2 million for a bridge, we've been pretty effective, and there's no way you can promise, we've been getting grants, and we've been consistently getting grants, and we consistently give money back to the town as a committee, to the CPA, because we don't use it all, because we get a grant, and we give back what that leftover is. And we're gonna go for we already submitted for a 500 grand grant right now for this, and we're gonna submit for another 500 grand next year. Whether we get it, and that's the crux of it, I totally get it. That's the challenge, but if we don't have the money, then we can't get the money. And that's the real problem with these projects.
Another approach is to cut this to $1 million with a provision at the end that the funds, be tied to matching grants to meet the needs, so that the town shows that they're willing to put up some money towards that, but they need the grants to do that, versus you get the whole 2.2, and if you don't get any grants, well, you still spend the 2.2 versus the other way around. So,
Yeah, that's
yep.
definitely an approach, and this is the struggle of this space,
I don't know that we can get the borrowing, though. We'd have to hold on. I'm just trying to think of the logistics of borrowing for something we don't have full funding for.
Right, this language we have in front of us is the language from bond council. That's what we'd have to
We could talk about some other, structures of other funding mechanisms and so forth, borrowing or some other way to put some money out that, is a more reasonable, in my mind, more reasonable term, expenditure of town funds that can then be matched with other funds to say, okay, we only paid half of this $2 million project. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal to me. And so there may be, it will take some time offline from this meeting here tonight to see how to structure such an article, if that's something that's needed. Somebody going to make a motion in favor of this article?
So, if you're gonna make the motion, make sure you read the bond council language that was sent in that separate email.
Hearing none, how about?
And don't read to pay the cost of twice. We're gonna strike that second part of that one.
Where is the bond council thing?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, where is it?
No, the motion. This is the motion you would need to make.
Hearing nobody making that motion, then I'll stick my neck out and make a motion that we recommend the town meeting take no action on this article.
I second.
All right. Mike, Hager, and Porter, yes. MCP. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Can I just want to jump in on that, and I understand the concerns about that, but, I just understand that if the spirit is that we hope that we can get the grants and revisit, I do want to remind you what Brandon said is that those grants don't come unless we show funding. So, or the ability to fund too, is, I just want everybody to be aware that I hate to lose what's potentially a $500,000 to $1 million in grants. I was saying you 400 or 500, I forgot Brandon, we can actually split it over 2 years. So, I just want to make everybody aware of that.
And so I would just say, if you came back next week with an article that had a $1 million number or something like that, that had some acceptable funding mechanism in it, that could then, be added to future grant money, there's the ante from the town side. This article says, give us the whole 2.2 and we'll try to get grants, and if we can't, oh well, we're gonna spend the 2.2. So there may be another way to put a more reasonable number in my mind against this bridge. I'm not so thrilled about the bridge in the first place, especially at that level, but, at a much lower number, I might be more supportive of that and see if you can't get some matching funds to complete the project. That's
And
intended.
taxpayers, certain groups of taxpayers are gonna be in for a real shock this year because, right, even more of the senior center comes online in that debt. And then we haven't seen yet what water and sewer are gonna do to the water and sewer users, right?
But again, this doesn't change what they're paying in CPC tax. This has absolutely no, I just want to be clear that there's no direct
I
impact.
hear you, but it's just an additional
I
tax
understand,
burden.
but, yeah. I just don't want people confused who might be watching.
I gotta move the motion over here, so, so the motion right now sits at no action, and we'd be willing to entertain coming back, because we still have 4 or 5 more meetings, but at this point, it stands at no action. So all those in favor of no action? All those opposed to no action? So it's 6-1 in favor of no action. Okay.
Are there any other trail topics?
Yeah, there's 2 more at least.
Okay, I wasn't sure of the order, okay.
So the next one is Grand Trunk Trail Extension.
And I think I have the wrong summary box in that, Kevin, so I apologize.
Yes. The other thing that's Article 8, the other thing I would point out, the way it's worded, see the town vote to raise and appropriate from the reserve fund, I think you're supposed to say community preservation reserve fund balance.
Yep.
Let's skip Article 8 then, and we'll get that.
I'll just redraft that for you next
Well, we
time.
can redraft that, we're here to just, you want
All right.
to, since Brad's here, discuss what the article's about in case there's any
Box
questions.
isn't
Yeah, that's a
there.
good point, always here.
Happy to come back.
I have, a different Article 8 here. I have an Article 8 here, it's Community Preservation Grand Trunk Extension.
Yes.
Yeah, but on here, I have Article 8, I have Town Historic Survey. Is that,
We've never forwarded that, so we're working with the one we have.
okay,
Article 9 is the survey.
okay.
Yeah, on our sheet.
Okay,
That's why I make sure to point out the file we're using, so people know the date.
Too many versions out there.
yeah, I understand.
Just go ahead, explain what this is, and I'll just tell you as you go through the explanation, I realize you have to do this in bits and pieces versus we're just going to do the next 5 miles, but when I look at this and say, we're going to get another 800 feet towards 50 miles worth of trails, it looks like there's just a tiny little bite going on in here, so.
Well, because some of it's hard and some of it's easy. We can go through, and there are certain trails that we can build quickly and don't need any help, and there's certain trails that we need permitting and to deal with wetlands and to manage around those, and that's what this situation is. There's a lot of sheet flow or runoff from a large hillside into a vernal pool, and we need to go through engineering and permitting to figure out how to handle that. It's something that we can't, it's beyond our ability as a sustainable trail to build, and we need to figure out what's the right way to get this water, managed, so that we.
Where is that approximately?
So if you've been if you go all the way in from the Riverlands parking lot and going on the main trail,
Is that on Stallion Hill Road?
yeah, that's on Stallion Hill Road, so that's the Riverlands. So you go in there, and you go in on the main trail.
Yeah,
and you-
because there were two, you guys just did something, they were to consolidate the entrance or something, didn't you? Is this right across from the village?
Yeah, right across from the village.
You've got a maintenance shed there and all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so if you park there, and right in the middle of the back of the parking lot is the Grand Trunk Trail. And if you walk all the way in on that trail and stay on that main trail, goes back and forth a bit, and you hit a power line.
Okay.
When you hit the power line, there's water coming off the hillside that is, basically, we haven't built more trail yet, because we need to figure out how to manage that water. And whether it's putting a couple culverts in and building the trail over it, or, water bars or whatnot, but we need some engineering help and permitting help to do that.
If you get this 800 feet, are you good for distance after that, or it's, okay, now we're gonna come back next year for the next 800 feet? It seems like it's just a short little stretch for what you're trying to do here.
Well, it's when you get into permitting and you get into engineering design for that, that's why it's more expensive. Typically, most of the work we do, we don't need much more than volunteer hours and some gravel to go on top of it. So this section takes us to the sand pit, and then that's, from there, we figure out how to get out to Holland Road and map that trail out.
Because ideally, that's going to go all the way to Holland Road on
Yes.
that side of the river. Yes, that's right.
And that's the plan. There's some property and hurdles in there that we don't own a section and stuff like that Robin's fully aware of. So as a committee, we can build trail to get around that without a problem.
So if we do that, how many miles do we pick up?
For that section, so that gets us, when we finish all the way up to Holland Road, gets us a mile, and then from there, we're putting 2 or 3 more miles on that property for single track as well.
But
You got like 4 miles.
That's
on that
the
side of the
trail
property.
the bridge would have connected to.
No. So there's that main trail, if this is the main trail,
Yeah,
the river's over here, and there's a trail that comes down to
Okay.
the bridge. That's existing today.
So if you get this 800 feet squared away, on the other side of the 800 feet, there's a mile or a couple miles of trail. So this is, your 800 feet kind of
Opens it up.
opens up.
So you have to think of
connects
what,
it.
so the Grand Trunk is a different animal than everything else. This is a wide trail that's handicap accessible. It's gonna go from Webster to Palmer someday. Right now, the other thing we're asking for is, right now you can ride, we finished the section, which was the T grant, all the way to Falkwa Road from Westville, if any of you have done that. If you haven't walked it, you should, because it's an amazing piece of trail that we didn't do the work, but we got the grant to do that. From there, we're gonna go behind, Hebert's, and that's already underway. We're working with the state to cross 84. We're talking to the village about how we can access, go down their properties. And so the survey is another piece of this that was listed here to get around some of the property, the wetlands that are near the village. The intent is that you're going to be able to go from Westville to East Brimfield Dam, mostly on trail with a little road ride.
So you addressed my question. 800 feet for here.
Is in the center of that entire
And then
end-to-end
what's
ride.
next? Well, I get through this 800 feet, I open up a couple miles on the other end. and extend
Yeah, we open up to,
Not open this up and then, okay, now the next 800 feet, we got a rock problem and then we got to come back and do more. So
No,
it's a small piece that connects two larger.
yeah, it gets us through, it gets us, there'll be other, there's other things we could do in the future, but yes, it gets us through a section that allows us to open up and have usable trail to the other side of the property.
I'm going to diverge because I get confused on this, working with the state and getting across 84. I come out of the trail system and the old Heberts or whatever, I got Route 15. Aren't I just walking across the bridge there to get to the trail system on the other end? And
Well, we would think so, but if you introduce that conversation to the state, you have to,
I don't want to hear that.
you gotta have a lot of, we can't even have a trail end on Route 15 at this point. We have to dead end it and tell people to turn around
Town owns Route 15, so why are they dictating what we're doing?
because it's near the 84 intersection.
Oh, it's within
Right.
their,
So actually, the state has a trail group that has been actually engaged pretty aggressively, which which is great. We've had like 3 meetings in a year, which is a lot for that. But it's one of those 4 or 5 year projects where sooner or later they'll put some, sidewalks in or paint the road and so on, but it's just gonna take time to get there.
so if I want to just take a walk down Route 15 and cross over the bridge, the state's going to be okay. If you want to go out there and designate it as part of the trail,
Not happening,
it's a different story.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would just not call it
And they
a
don't
trail
like, and they don't like
point
that
by
intersection
those.
because, people are concerned about that intersection, given the number of accidents and so on that happen there, so they want to get control of that.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, well, let's take Article 8 then. Do I have a motion on Article 8?
I'll make a motion we recommend to town meeting to approve Article 8 as presented.
Second.
So Ken seconds. Jim wanted Ken Talentino.
And I'm on the board.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? All right, 7-0. So I'm going to move to Article 11 because you already kind of referred to it. Article 11 is the survey.
So that, once you get over the bridge that we talked about, instead of going down the village road, there's an old cart road through the woods that would bypass a good section of the village road and that private section of road, and come out near the solar farm that the village has. And then from there, we would go along the road and keep the trail off the road along that back road all the way out to the coffee shop, just to sawdust area, in theory. But this survey is specific from, if you know where the back gate is, the village?
When you say the back gate,
Near the parking, yeah, the way back, where our parking lot is.
yeah,
There's the big mound on the right side. If there's a huge mound on the right side, basically, the cart road is around that mound, and we need to do survey work to figure out, topographical work to figure out how to get around that and what's an appropriate way to put the trail in.
And the trail would basically follow the village road?
This would be, if the village road is, you drive in, hit the gate and go right, the mound is here, we would bypass that on the hypotenuse of that and come out by the solar farm on that road, and then the trail would go along the village road from there. And so it's enough with the Army Corps land and other owners and properties in there and the village owner, we don't really know where land we have access to begins and where it ends.
I'll make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve the article as written.
Second that.
second. Mike Hager and Jim Waddick. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay, so I think that's the Trails articles for this.
Just a question, just another one, just generally, on trails was Sturbridge Village, over Sturbridge Village. Do they tie in, do they see any with all these trails? Do they see like more activity or there's their restaurant that before you go in or something? Because it seems like everything surrounds it and they're obviously commercial, right? I mean, they charge quite a bit to get in and stuff, yeah. So is there any way to tie them in and to make this more?
So we've talked to the
more
village, we've talked to the village about, so Robin, we met with, the village probably 4 or 5 months ago. And from a tourism, conversation, they were happy, Chamberlain wrote an article they put in their newsletter to go out about the trails and Sturbridge and stuff like that. So there's conversations going on, but I think we'll see things in the future, because even like the ice sculptures, we had 120 cars in an hour and a half to see the ice sculptures. You couldn't even, people were parking in the village parking lot to come across and see the professionals, and the amateurs make ice sculptures. And so, stuff like that are things that we're trying to promote, to get people out to do things and so on. So it's, we see more of that happening.
The bike event, Brandon, they're using the village parking lot, in
Yes.
fact, next weekend, or last weekend, for the bike event.
Yeah, that and the 5K that we do, that the Rotary Club does, is all on the trails, but they park in all the village parking lots and stuff like
So
that.
where do you advertise? Because I'll tell you, I mean, I never heard anything about ice carving events, ever.
You're not on our mailing list, Kevin, so, no, I'm kidding.
Is that what it is? You have to sign up for a list?
It's a little bit of everything.
Social media,
We
If
actually.
you're not on social media, you won't see any of it. so.
You're gonna, this year, we just built the new website, candidly. We've been more focused on maintaining the trails and making sure they're safe than the website stuff. We have a guy we built a new website, we have new mailing lists, new Facebook posting, so, the town is gonna start to see a lot more of that coming from us, and I'll make sure that this committee and others get on, because that's one of the things we're really focused on this year, is to make sure that the outreach is there.
So
The trailer parallels from where the doggy daycare is, the trailer parallels River Road and then crosses Farquhar.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be some activity on that?
Yeah,
Are you waiting for the crossover?
We just opened the bids today,
Okay,
so it's gonna get built.
because I go by there every day, several times a day.
Yeah, it's just,
Across Farquhar, I mean, it goes
yeah,
right along the river.
there's gonna be a small little parking lot down there, and then there'll be the trail will come out right behind.
Once you cross Farquhar, does that trail go all the way, is continuous to Westville,
Yeah,
along the river? I thought it did, yeah.
yeah, and actually, if you haven't been down there, there's actually a nice old bridge down there called the Ed Calcutt Bridge.
I walk from Westville across the bridge, and I keep wanting to go to Farquhar, but my car's back the other way, and I don't want to get all the way to Farquhar and I have to go back to the car.
So that's why
I've
we're putting
gotta find way to
we're putting a
leave
parking
the-
lot at the Farquhar too, so you could
Yeah.
walk one, pick up your other car, and then the next day go the other way and go back to your other car, so that way.
The one that starts at
Or
West,
maybe you have a volunteer with a golf cart to bring me back or something, you know?
One of the things, to be honest.
a zip line.
Candidly, one of the things we do on a lot of the properties is to make sure that we have good loop trails. People want to start somewhere, never repeat the trail, and then back at their car.
Back, yeah.
And so Plimpton is a great example of that, where it's a great loop. You can go out and come back and have a good, 2 to 3 mile hike.
Yeah, the trail at Westville, it starts at Westville, it's a great trail. I would take it all the time, all the time. And once you get to Farquhar and River Road,
turn
I
around,
got
Well, one last question. What I get skeptical on, you talked about the 5K race and the benefit of that. And the number of participants you had there, the bike event that's coming up again, that seems to be well attended and so forth. And that's a great way to bring people in to use the trails to do whatever else. But I have difficulty saying, but that's a crowd of people that after they run the 5K, or to run the 5K, they're gonna need to come and spend a weekend in a hotel here. I think it's a day trip. After they run the 5K, are they gonna go out and have a nice dinner? Maybe they buy a cup of coffee or something at a coffee shop. I just don't see they're coming into town and our businesses are really getting the benefit of them coming into town to use the trails. I understand the allure of the trails and so forth. I just have a hard connection with events like that saying, and it translates to hotel and motel meals taxes.
Yeah, understood. And I think that's one of the things that when you talk about engaging with the village and being able to use their parking lots and being able to one of the challenge with Sturbridge is if I wanted to, there are people that hold 50-mile rides, and they will go on properties within 3 towns, and these are large groups of people that do these rides. The problem within Sturbridge is if you think about a central access point where you can have a lot of cars park and not have to bus people in and do certain things like that, the village is really the only place or the host hotel, right? And so it becomes, that's the other hurdle to this is, to hold a big event, you have to have the trails, the mileage of trails, that we can be responsible for and paint that story. I'm not gonna I don't have the bandwidth to advocate for a ride that's going off into Brimfield and into Holland and so on and so forth, but from our local stuff, yeah.
Can I follow up on that question too? They may not that day spend money after they finish the bike ride, for example, but if anytime we get people into your community, when you have a community that's a showcase community and has some beautiful things to share, when you get people who might come in for the first time, when you draw people in from Boston, when you draw people in from the east side of the state, and they see there's always that thought that that person's gonna say, geez, this is nice, I'd like to come back for an overnight. Maybe my kids would like to go on a bike, an overnight and go biking, on the trails some weekend. I think anytime you bring people in, even if they don't spend money that day, if they're new people or people who don't usually come, we sell ourselves once people are here. It is that beautiful community. So I understand that question, they might not go out and spend $200 on dinner that night, but if they come back, because they saw something they liked, they realize there's an RV park nearby, they realize there's a hotel, moderately, somewhat affordable hotels compared to the east side of the state. We're actually pretty affordable, our meals and our hotels. So they come, they look around, they poke around. You got a shot at people coming back. I mean, that's how, we're our own best advertising.
Well, and
So
the breweries
it's
are
an
all,
event,
and the
you know.
breweries are all full after every mountain bike event, no matter what you want to,
Yeah.
whether it's 50, 70, 100 people, every brewery in town is full. And you can't get in, and it's almost annoying, because you have to go somewhere.
No, I think the town people definitely want open space and trails, but realize you also have Wells State Park with 12 miles of trails, and Westville Lake, the U.S. Army Corps, with 3 miles, that's 15 miles, that when they go through Wells Park, they want something to eat. There's only
Yeah,
one place to
the
go, is
problem with
Sturbridge,
it,
right?
you
So
don't-
you got 12 miles there and.
The trick with that is we don't control wells.
You don't
And I would-
control those,
And I
yeah.
wouldn't say the wells trails are as,
Like, they're not, challenging.
No, if you want, I think back to Kevin's maintenance question, you could spend a couple years in there and not get him to the quality of what we have in town and the rest of the trail system.
Yeah, you're right.
I want to add something also, as you talked about people being attracted to come to town, and then spend a whole bunch of money, coming for 5K or whatever. However, look at the wedding business the public house does and the barn does. Multi-million dollars for both of them every year, and the number of people that come in here. It's from people who come here and get exposed. They're not just leaving through Bridal Magazine and saying, well, the public house looks something nice, or the barn looks someplace. They've been here, they were experienced here. They had a meal at the Swan or the Duck or whatever, for whatever reason. And they said, you know what, that common looks really nice. And they take a ride by the public house. They come back after being exposed to it, either by something so innocent as a dinner or a lunch at the Duck, or coming to the trail and coming this way. And that's what gets that return business coming back. And then the public house is exploding with their weddings, and so is the barn as well. So I'm saying there is a return, no matter how.
It's most, everybody I've ever talked to loves Sturbridge in terms of the
God,
charm.
yes.
And we locals are different, we're all different than that, we know, you know where the bodies are buried in town, but when it comes to, the people outside of town, they do love, they think Sturbridge is quite charming.
Oh, no question.
They think the next town over is New York. But anyways, all right, we thank you for the conversation.
So we're not,
There's no more, there's more CPC articles to
no,
consider.
no, it's
but
good, there was
nothing
one more I
trailer.
had, but maybe they talked about that before I came in, the general fund one?
The general fund one?
Which one is that?
Yeah, your general trail enhancements, we approve that.
Oh, you already did that one?
Oh, yeah, that's,
Straightforward.
Thank you very much.
okay. So,
I appreciate all of you. I know
Thank you.
none of it's easy, so thank you.
Article 9, Town Historic Survey. If you remember, I think it was last year, Barbara Search came in and gave us quite the explanation of what this was, and this looks like it's a continuation of that effort. I forget how many
So
phases.
can you
there were.
explain,
I will.
the last three, quickly, what the results are and how we're using those versus we just keep adding?
We're adding them until every house is surveyed. That's what we're going to do, Mike.
Mine's not historic, so don't even
No,
bother
no, no,
coming
no,
down
no,
my
no, no,
neighborhood,
no.
right?
We won't go into your coverage. But what the whole idea of the historic survey is, and the information is that this particular one, we're looking for $60,000 to add 200 more homes and/or buildings to the historic survey. If you go on the Historic Commission's website right now, and you go on to just type in historic survey, and you'll come to a webpage. The houses that have been surveyed thus far are all listed there. Some of them are yet to be loaded up. Started back in the 1970s with a whole bunch of local folks doing the surveys on forms for the state, and trying to get as much history on each one of the houses in town or buildings that were historically just here, older homes, to find out what the history of them was. It was a rough process back then. They didn't have what they had today. Nowadays, we hire somebody to come in and do the survey. Now, we had 3 different people that the Historic Commission sought narrowed it down to, we chose Eaton Associates, an architectural archaeological associates, architectural associates to come in and do this for us. They'll do 200 homes this year, and we gave them suggestions of where to go and what we'd like to see done this year. Older homes up towards the Southbridge line and that area there. Of old farms, we wanted to see if there are farms in town that could be added to the thing. We didn't go with that because there's just too much variables with the old farms that are still existent, so we're gonna put that off to a later date. But Fiskdale is very, very important. Route 20 and along those there's a lot of historic old mill houses that are being lived in right now that we don't know much about them. Back in the early 70s, Helen Hawley, a name that a lot of people didn't know, a historian here in town who worked for the village as well, she had done a lot of research herself. That is sort of not up to, then it was great, but they're going to add to that. So the whole idea of this new survey is each time we ask for money, the Historic Commission asks for the money, is to get the houses on the list. And what they're going to end up doing is putting it on an overlay map on the top GIS site. So all the houses are going to be accounted for.
You're collecting data in history, but you're not creating an obligation on me as the owner of that home by having it added on.
No, because the homeowner doesn't have anything to do with it, unless they hear about the surveys coming up and they have information to add. And in fact, there's a gentleman who's down on Old Fisk Hill Road, had emailed me yesterday, and he says, I want to know more about my house, and he wants to have his house. We have a list. He wants to give some information about his house.
This doesn't restrict them like what you're thinking, where they can't put a certain thing on their house, or they have to paint it a certain color. It's not like that kind of
I
historic.
kind of remember Barbara Schwartz saying they don't even go on the person's property, they take pictures from the street.
They pull up in front of the house to take some pictures. If the person knows that they're coming or has heard about them, they can always contact the Historic Commission and say, I have some information I want to share. And that's always appropriate, but no, this is not, as Robin just said, it does not restrict anybody. It's garnering the information from the Book of Deeds and all the history of the town.
Right, I love history, but so what? I mean, so that's down near Southbridge or somewhere, there's a house, I mean.
Well, what happens is, when you have a house that has been inventoried, and you have the entire history from it, going back to the day it was created, and the story behind it, if something comes up like development that comes along with it, and you don't want to get into a situation again, or you want to have your ammo in your canister ready, because if you have a situation that a developer wants to come in and take something down, we learned a very hard lesson with the CVS coming into town, taking the Piccadilly pub down. We weren't prepared. Historic Commission was not really there at the time. And what ended up happening was that if we had been better prepared, we could have probably fought better for it. However, if somebody's coming in and they have a house in town, this will not prevent the house from being ever destroyed or whatever. There's a whole demolition delay situation with that, with the planning department and the building inspector. What this will do, give us the history of the houses that we
that
have
was
in
Jim's
town.
information.
And every community is doing this, so they can know what they have in town.
I see the
and what the
email.
stories are behind the houses in town. And it's a very appropriate thing to do. You may have around the common, the houses there, we already know about that they're all been in the survey at one time or another, and they'll be added to it later on. But down there in Fiskdale, there's an awful lot of stuff down there that you want to be able to record and have in the town archives and have on that map, on that GIS map.
I don't want to cut you off, but just to move us along, I'd make a motion that we recommend a town meeting approved Article 9 Historic Survey as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Waddick? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? So 6-1.
I do have, can I ask a question real quick? I pulled up the information that you were talking about, and so if I'm looking for a particular house, why would a house not be on here?
So the next article.
Very good question. Excellent question.
Because Fisk Hill, it's like I'm looking, and I know my sister's house on Fisk Hill I didn't expect to see mine because mine's newer. But hers I know is old, and it's like, oh, it's not on here. Is there a reason?
Okay, that's a great question. What happens is, there are a number of historic houses up on Fisk Hill, and there's a number of little areas and stuff. Each survey, you can only do so many. This is a large survey for us,
Right.
200 of them. okay? And we're gonna see if we can fit them all in. And what usually ends up happening is that the ones that you don't see there will be done eventually. Okay, they're just not there yet.
Just curious.
That's all. They're not that they're shunning them, no.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kevin, moving to Article 10.
Reservation housing.
That's the one where we have the housing trust, and we had some trustees that the town meeting voted what the composition of, and
Right.
and that group is
I
finally
remember.
getting together.
Kathy's our
Kathy's
representative.
on it.
What did you want to know?
Oh, no, I was just
That-
trying to,
that's what
I was
this
just
money
trying to
is for.
explain the article, that we're moving money out of CPC funds that were designated for housing and placing them in the hands of the
Right, we've
trust.
actually made some big strides this year. We hired a part-time person, and we also, to help us, she's been on board just a few months, and she's really gone gangbusters. And then we have that other one who's always online, Karen, is it?
Karen, yes.
And,
Karen.
yes, can't remember names. And she's been helping us with other aspects of the whole affordable housing. So I think we've made a big strides this year,
Oh, gosh, yeah.
yeah.
We got a bunch
So I'll
of
make a
money. on it.
motion that we recommend that town meeting approve Article 10 as written.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Jim?
I'm sorry, why such an increase in the amount from last year?
Because we're really going forward now with actions and helping out with the affordable housing. And, you know, and there is a new affordable housing law in Massachusetts too, so that will also have an impact.
And don't we have someone
And it
employed with the
basically-
town planner now that's her responsibility? Don't we have someone in that office? The town planner's office?
I'm sorry to hear the
What was
question.
that
And I see it more as we're taking the housing funds from the CPC
Yes.
and putting it in the hands of the trustees of the housing trust, and that's
Right.
really their focus
Yes.
over there. So let them, through their mechanisms and their controls of authorizing expenditures, put it
Yeah.
to.
And we're also actually looking at, you know, possible, what they call friendly 40Bs, which is, you know, because otherwise somebody, because we are not at the level we're supposed to be for affordable housing according to the state, you know, somebody could come in and you basically get to
Skip all the zoning
skip
laws.
or ignore some
All
of
the
the zoning
zoning
laws.
laws, yep.
But if you find someone that you can partner with, and then it becomes sort of a friendly 40B.
Yeah.
So they won't run over you, basically. That's something that we're also looking into
On
doing.
Main Street going towards Southbridge, there's a road going up, and there's a development, it looks like smaller homes, like almost like cookie cutter. What are those? Are those low,
No, they're not low income. They're modular homes, and they'll be selling for about 350,000. They're very, very
And
nice.
just so you know, Ken, modular homes are not considered by the state affordable, no matter what the price is on them.
No.
And we have argued with the state about that, but they don't budge on
that
it.
doesn't help us at all,
More
then,
like
huh?
an over 50
Nope.
community kind of thing.
Too bad.
And nor does the mobile home
No,
parks
it's
count.
it's a modular home. It's- it's
Right.
different, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a little bit different, but yeah, but they don't count either.
interesting.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted.
All right. So I have a first and a second to approve Article 10 as written. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
I think I'm supposed to
You
abstain, right?
abstain, right?
Yeah.
Opposed? Oh, so then it's going to be
I
6 to
raised my
0.
hand first.
Okay, 6 to 0 to 1.
Yeah.
All right. Article 12, Revolutionary War gravestones.
So, quickly on that one, you got a couple of this is the old burial ground, you got a couple of stones that need restoration that hadn't been covered before, and this is a one-time, one-off kind of.
It's a one-time off thing. Bob Greer brought it up. He said, in honor of the Revolutionary War veterans for the 250th, if we could clean those stones. And since all the legwork has been done years ago by Bill Barnsley to document them all in the book that I'm writing, this has all been pretty much, this is just to clean them up. The Sturbridge Historical Society is sponsoring this with their volunteers and with the volunteers for the Sturbridge Gravestone Keepers, all a bunch of volunteers. What we're doing, asking here, is just for the supplies to do this. This should probably be not too much more than a several outing over a month, you know, we get this done. For the anniversary of the country, I think this is appropriate.
I'll make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve Article 12 as written.
Second.
That's, yeah, got you there. I'm finally getting the voice. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? That's 7-0.
Was that Article 11 you had?
12.
12, okay. My numbers are different on this paper. I don't know who gave it to me, but I'm going to,
Article 13, North Cemetery gravestone surface restoration.
right.
Is this the process you demonstrated on
Yes,
TV?
and this is the process that we're doing now, and this, the amount that we're asking for this time is to, this will take care of the entire project over the next 24 to 36 months. And everything else is the volunteer effort.
Okay.
But it's the supplies. The most expensive part is the solution, and that's the reason why you see a higher number here than elsewhere. It's $50 a gallon. And
Well, I'll make the motion on this one, that we approve this article. We recommend to town
Okay.
meeting that they approve this article as
Is there a second?
Second. Go ahead.
I will go with Kathy.
Kathy, yeah.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. All right, Article 14, restoration of the Hyde Family Bible.
Okay, this,
This Hyde is in Joshua Hyde?
huh?
It's stored where? At the library?
Yes, yes. This is the Hyde family who donated to the library. And that the library, the Bible itself, as you know, the Bibles back in the day, all the histories were all written inside the Bibles. And it's very, this particular Bible is no different. It's just in such disrepair that it has to be, like, I think it's Northeast conservators have got to sit down with it and take it page by page and bring it back and put it in a, so it doesn't deteriorate and fall apart on us. So the library trustees had come to the CPC and asked for that. They also had come to the Historic Commission and told the story about it, and they're very frightened that it's going to be gone. And it's a part of Sturbridge history, and it has got to be maintained. So this is what that's all about.
So why digitization of only specific pages, not the whole thing?
I think it's a cost thing. I think the digitization.
Digitization.
There you go, see, it's the tooth. The reason why is
electronics
because they
12.
want to be able to get certain things like the family histories and things like that documented and digitized, as opposed to the entire Bible, because you can, not every page is written on it.
Okay,
you know what I'm
that's,
saying?
so you're going after the pages that
The
have some
handwritten
pages.
Have
Yeah.
historical significance.
Exactly.
Have something
exactly.
other than the Bible.
Right.
Is it a Bible or?
It's a Bible.
Yeah, it
So
would
what
be a
makes it-
In the old days, you'd have a family
That used to
Bible,
be a
and people
big-
would write.
yeah.
the
I understand if you had a
birth
Bible and you
certificates and everything
restored it,
else.
but
Oh,
if you digitized it, why is it in
Theology.
Bible?
It's not the digitizing, it's the Bible text, it's the family text that's
Family
inside there,
stuff.
of the verse, the date, the
What,
genealogy.
things they wrote and stuff in it, or is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
Genealogy.
Genealogy.
That is a big deal.
Family history of dates of birth and the names and all
Because it
that.
wasn't, you didn't have town records back in the day.
Where's this maintained anyway? Where's
It's
this?
in the library right now, it's in the vault, it's, where is it right now?
It's up in Northeast.
Oh, it's a
in a
conservatives right now.
restoration place right now, and they'll bring it back in a very, whatever kind of safe
A case,
box, that little
yeah.
case that has like no air in it or something.
Yeah,
Acid-free paper and all that type of stuff, yeah.
And that'll be on display, and then the digital copy of only the pertinent pages, not the whole Bible, because you
Right.
can't get
Right.
that anywhere.
Yep.
Just the pages that are special for the whole
so the
Hyde
public
family.
will see it once eventually, right? Okay.
Okay.
Somebody want to make it?
I'll make a motion
Kathy is? All right.
to
Prove
accept
it.
as written.
Yep. KN, do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, MCP, here we go. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, 7-0. Okay. So, I am going to skip the town budget at this point, and I would consider taking, if we all agree, basically my reading of Article 36 through Article 46.
Is Wally all set?
I'm
I
also,
don't think we need anything.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you, good luck with the book.
Oh, thank you very much.
So Article 36 through Article 46, they're all basically just housekeeping articles, just cleaning up our existing bylaws.
Is that the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
on
That's
the,
what we went to.
yes, that's the one we went, and I watched it
The
again.
three of us went to it.
Yes.
So I would be willing to entertain one motion to take them all, unless there's someone with comments about a specific one, then we can take them out.
I move that we take them all and that we,
Recommend, so your motion to
Recommend.
recommend, town meeting approve Articles 37 through 46. is written.
36.
yes, ditto.
36 through 46 is written, yep. Very good.
And no, so that's, I need a second to that.
Second.
Mike, all right. So everyone gets what we're doing. It's one full swoop because they're just codifying, cleaning up.
Although I think 39, the accessory dwelling, is to update it with the new legislation.
With
but-
that,
yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
But, I mean,
Yes.
it
That's
has to be in
making it-
conformance with the legislation, so, but
Yes.
that wasn't really just housekeeping, but anyway.
Well,
I know what you mean.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no objection.
okay. But thank you for clarifying that, though, for anyone who was listening.
Right,
That's
right.
good to know. All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor? All right, that's 7-0.
That was a fast one, that was good. Got 10 of them.
Okay, so I'm willing to, we're getting, later than normal. Article 15, what I was thinking of doing and how to handle it was going through it like we do at the town meeting and just basically say, this account, this money, if you want to hold anybody on here, just say hold and we'll just move on, then take everything without a hold and deal with it.
You want to do the two special meet?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, let's go do with those first. Now, the reason why those are here today, because everyone who attended or watched the joint meeting
Yes.
where Robin did her presentation, Barbara added the color commentary, and I think Heather was here for 45 and 46 to explain the need, why we're taking this now,
Yes.
so,
You can vote them all, I think. They're all pretty straightforward on the STM.
nah, I can only do with what I have on my,
okay.
I only have these two. So if we're dealing with the STM, do I have a motion to approve Article 45, which is the purchase of a
Why don't you do a joint motion, we approve Article 45 and 46.
Good enough.
As written.
So that's you, Mike?
Jim, if he's okay with
Okay.
that,
I'll
that's his
make the
motion.
motion on those.
Okay, this is the STM. And do I have a second to Jim's motion?
Second.
There's Mike. All
I would
right,
just say, the only issue here is, we got free cash, we're spending it on a bunch of stuff. Do we agree that we want to spend that much money and on those things? So I would say for this, I'm okay with this.
yeah.
And I haven't
Yeah.
come up with anything I disagree with yet, but, this is what's in front of us tonight.
Okay. So we have Article 45 and 46, one motion, all those in favor? Okay, 7-0.
Can I make a quick comment about our DPW director?
Sure.
I made a comment at the joint meeting about the great job she did on Cooper Road. I was driving by here a couple of weeks ago immediately after we had a snowfall of several inches. And the person I saw out front shoveling the sidewalk in front of the town hall and doing all that was our DPW director. She doesn't have enough help, but she's out there swinging a shovel to get the work done. So I don't know if you're aware of that, Robin, but that's the
Yes,
kind of
and I-
employee that I really love to have, is someone that rolls up their sleeves and
Yeah.
digs in.
All right.
And I really want to thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that, because I think a lot of times people don't realize how hard, sometimes people we think are always behind the scenes, but she was out there in front of the scenes on that one.
Yeah.
And the next morning, after all of that snow, all of that weather we had, she showed up at the senior center and helped move furniture as well.
I don't know.
Why am I not surprised?
So thank you for, I really appreciate you bringing that up. She's a great member of our team.
Yep.
All right, line item budget.
Okay, what page is it?
We're starting C1, Board of Selectmen, $3,600. Town Administrator, $324,853.
I have a question, so I understand the merit-based
Oh, we're
pay and how
starting
it
the
fits
line
in there, so why don't you hold that one?
Okay, Town Administrator hold, great, I'll just
Was
put
that on
holds
the
here.
agenda?
Great.
Oh, yeah.
So, Finance Committee,
Yes, I think so.
8,169. All right,
If there's no comment, it's passing?
it's going past, you have to tell me you want to hold it. if you
Okay,
don't.
good, okay.
It's not on the agenda.
I know.
There it is,
Line item budget.
line item budget, Article 15, Town Budget.
Article
Item O.
Is the town budget. He's sneaky, Larry, he's trying to pull a fast one.
Oh, it's under That was sneaky.
He's slippery.
That's what they titled the article, I mean,
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
So where was I? Town accountant, 129,998. Assessors, 187,297. Finance director, 395,184. Town council, 70,000. IT, as we know, there's a change going on here, so it's 409,225.
Hold on that one.
You want to hold on IT? Okay, good enough. Town clerk, 154,691. Elections and registration, 17,415. Conservation, 138,805. Town planner, 247,367. ZBA, 590. Economic development, 39,570. And then, you want to hold that too? Okay. No problems. All right, facilities, 82,030. Hold. Okay. Town hall, 34,150. Center office building, 36,500. Senior center building, 21,650. Senior center building, okay. No problem. Joshua Hyde Library Building, 21,635. Safety complex, which is the building, 94,451. Nursery school, 5,600. 8 Brookfield Road, 0. Hold, okay.
could I just, before we move on from that, I just had a quick question for Robin.
Yep,
On 8 Brookfield Road, I drove by there yesterday evening, and it appeared to where we had talked months ago about a patch on that roof,
yep.
and we didn't do it, but it appeared that maybe DPW went over there and put a layer of some type of roofing cement over that section of the roof to seal it. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looked like something had been done up there.
Clear them off.
I'll check. I thought we had approved a patch up to a certain amount.
Did you
What's that?
get a response on 8 Brookfield?
I thought we had approved a patch up to a certain amount. It was less money. We went out and rebid it. And I think we got the lower
Yes, we
quote.
did. Yes, we did. We did approve it,
Yeah.
that's right, okay.
Police
Okay.
Department, $3,997,887. Fire, go ahead.
No, it's just sold.
Oh, Fire Department, $2,291,296. Building Inspector, $156,694. Sealer of Weights and Measures, $21,800. Inspectors, $55,300. Tree Warden, $39,901. Education, $22,934.
2 million.
Oh, sorry, $22,934,835.
You hold that, or, we got some information come from Burgess, yep.
Okay.
That's for all the schools.
And Ken and Larry both held that, so everything else is Mike so far. Okay.
Aren't they having a slight change?
All right, DPW, $1,392,021.
I have a question on that one.
So we'll hold it for the time being, we'll come back.
Gotcha.
DPW, so that's, hang on a second, MP. Okay. Town road maintenance, 8. Snow and ice removal, 243,511. Landfill recycling center, 424,968. Board of Health, 147,030. Community Health, 5,000. Inspections and testing, 53,623. Council on Aging, 172,278. Veteran Services, 79,422. Joshua Hyde Library Operations, 632,720. Recreation, 144,176. Trails, 300. Historical Commission, 4,150. Debt Service Principal, 1,625,000. Debt Service Interest, $625,383. Unclassified, $6,276,698. And central purchasing, $491,350. Okay, so what I have held, Mike has held the town administrator, the information technologies, economic development, facilities, senior center building, 8 Brookfield Road. Education is Larry and Ken, and the DPW is MC. So, for everything else, can I get a motion to accept?
Can I make a suggestion, maybe go through the questions?
Oh, we can do them all, okay.
Give it a holds and just do it all in one motion?
Sure thing, go for it. All right.
I'll do mine are pretty quick.
Town administrator.
8 Brookfield, I'll go backwards, make them easier.
Oh,
8
okay.
Brookfield Road, there's zero in there.
What page is that on?
8 Brookfield Road. Including, it
Find
looks
it,
like
C6.
the department head, probably facilities, were recommending close to $12,000 for some other items. So I understand we don't have a purpose for that, but I think we have a building and some level of a budget, maybe not to the $5,000 level we've had in the past, but some level of budget makes sense. We saw last year we had nothing in there, and now all of a sudden we need a reserve fund transfer because a roof repair comes up. So to me, whether it's $500 or $1,000, there should be something in here in case a maintenance item comes up versus say, no, we don't plan on doing any maintenance, oh, but it's an old building, something happens, and now we gotta rely on a reserve fund transfer.
That makes sense.
So,
And since we have zero flexibility, if we put a number in here.
we have to take it from somewhere
It
else.
either comes from somewhere else, or Barbara needs to come back and say, hey, my revenue projections, I found an extra $1,000 to balance out
At this
where we
point,
are.
I would take it from somewhere else.
So, Robin, I guess I'll send it your way. It just doesn't make sense to have a zero number in there, some number, just in case something comes up, so you're not relying on reserve fund transfer in a hurry when that one maintenance item does occur.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess I just wouldn't even begin to know what number. I mean, if something goes wrong, to be honest with you, it's gonna be a lot more than $1,000 likely if we have some unexpected thing happen, if you will. I hear what you're saying. I just don't see anything I would prioritize it over. If we have something that happens, it's gonna be thousands, 8, 9, 10,000, where we would have to come back for a reserve fund transfer anyway. I get it. To have a building with zero seems a little awkward, but I just couldn't find a priority from somewhere else, given how tight things were. In a perfect world, would we have said, oh yeah, put 2,500 in, and, just hold it there. I just didn't have that kind of flexibility this year. I will say, I've got to take a hard look. I've had a few people approach me about buying it in the past when we had put it out. We got bids that were very, very low, which we couldn't even sell it for below certain values. I've had more people approach me. The thing I've got to work with is on the state, the parking, because we only have a very small portion of the parking on that, which is one of the other reasons we really haven't done much with it.
So I guess I'll throw it out to the committee. If others feel we need a number, we can talk about a number. If the majority of folks are okay with a zero, realizing, then we get into a reserve fund transfer. Should we have anticipated some maintenance, and can we approve an RFT or not? But
I hear you, it's a catch-22, but I mean, if anything was to happen there, like, let's just say the roof collapsed because of a snowfall next, I mean, that's unexpected.
I have nothing expected to that point, Kevin. And if it's moderate, small stuff that DPW can do, or, sometimes internally we can do things if it's site issues, external site issues. But anything would truly be unexpected.
Quick question, Robin, is the building now completely empty? I know there was concern about a roof leak because we had stuff stored in there from the senior center. I would assume now that that stuff is all moved over to the senior center.
A lot of that stuff what was gonna go back, did go back. There are still some things in there, older furniture, things that we'll look to either to get rid of as surplus, or if it's a backup, something to go somewhere, file cabinets that we're not too worried about. Moisture, but any quality pieces from the senior center are out of there, yeah.
So nothing we're worried about.
Nothing I'm really concerned about right now. No, I mean, it's not ideal, but nothing that keeps me up at night like other things might.
I'll remove my hold.
Okay.
I was gonna say, what's the long-range plan for that building then?
Well, like I said, I have to resolve the issue with the parking because when they redid 148, that the state kept a portion of that parking lot. We only have parking along one small side of that building. So depending on what we want to do it, if we want to use it, then we would have to have the state give us that land. If we want to sell it, we've got to get that resurveyed and get that all worked out. So I have had, like I said, I've had people interested in buying it, but we have to really take a needs assessment look. I did look last year at some one-stop possible grants on reuse of a building for community purposes. I'm not ruling that out again this year to see if I can poke at that a little bit too. So it's a project on my table for this year to see just which direction we want to go, but I got to resolve the parking issue
Yeah, it
first.
seems more like, it seems more of a nuisance than anything else, isn't it?
Yeah. But I can't give away a corner lot, we're not going to give that away.
No.
So moving up my list, senior center building, the budget is, we have a brand-new senior center, larger facility than we've had in the past.
Yep.
And yet our maintenance budget, or the budget for the building is less money than it was last year and the year before. So given a larger building, don't you think it would take more money for the maintenance in there rather than less?
So we're juggling around how we do our maintenance and how our maintenance crews are working. And those are the numbers we put together at this point. I think, given that the building is new, there are some things that don't need to be done now that will be in better shape to start. But right now, we're actually just reallocating some of our janitorial and custodial services for maintenance. So internally, we may be able to do what we need to do. And again, a lot of supplies and whatnot, everything was brought up. Some of the things that we would need to buy, mops and brooms and all that stuff, are all purchased. So there are things we don't need that we would have needed in the older building.
Add it to the punch list.
Yeah.
You can take my hold off on that one,
Okay, I'll
thank you.
remove.
We'll do two at once here, IT and facilities. So you talked about the staffing changes in there and combining of the department head, or what you call director position there. But that budget is 100% in the IT budget, and you don't have any department head salary in
Right.
the facilities side. And since that role is working both departments, I would have thought you would split the salary across those two departments, whether it's 50/50 or some other percentage in there, just to better reflect, the cost of operating those budgets. At the same time, if that individual were to leave for whatever reason, and you're trying to refill the position, and you decided, you couldn't fill it at a combined position the way you are right now, that you really needed, a facilities person and an IT person, you don't have a budget in one of those departments to try to cover that. So I guess my question is, should we not have split that department head budget across the two functions?
I'll tell you why we didn't. I think because we didn't double his salary, if you will. He got a stipend increase, and then we hired in Jeremy's in the IT department. We hired that tech person. That person's also going to be doing some facilities work as well, as far as helping with inventory, helping get purchase orders. So there's going to be a lot of cross. I actually probably, in thinking it through, if this does work as we proceed forward, would almost rather just combine the two into an IT and facilities budget, because I do think that is the direction that we're probably going to go. We see it with the schools. It's not a model that is uncommon. To be honest, even prior to looking at combining it with IT, I was actually looking at it, moving it under DPW. I don't see facilities as a standalone department. I really think it belongs either under a DPW or with an IT like it is now, as facilities moves toward a more technical type of a concept than it used to be. But it's hard to carve it out, because you'd have to really just put Jared. I don't know that his work is 50-50 split. I still think that there will be more work leading on the IT side, and when we look at the controls and whatnot, there's a fine line of what's IT and what's facilities. So, we could break it out. It doesn't bother me if you want to break it out. I just don't know exactly how we would, because even that part-time IT tech is going to have some role in assisting Jeremy in the facilities.
I just have a, structural question then. Is the new position have a new job description written in the
Yes.
whole evaluation done? So we actually have three positions, one for an IT director, I'm just saying, on our books. We have an IT director position, a facilities director, and then this combined one. So that way, if you ever wanted to go back, like Mike was suggesting, and split into two, those positions are already defined.
Yeah, we didn't take a job description and like
But you-
pretend it never existed. It's still, yeah, that's still there. If we wanted to go back, if I tomorrow change my mind and say, okay, I want to hire a facilities person, we have a description in place. But Jeremy's position is now a codified position approved by personnel and the board, by the personnel committee and the board.
Just the interesting, if it ever happened that we needed the funding, you could go to a special town meeting and say, we need to move X amount of funds from this. to
Right.
that.
That's what I'd have to do.
Usually they want to do that in a hurry and not wait for the timeframe to post and hold a special
Yeah, I
town
know,
meeting and run the risk that it goes, doesn't go, so.
And are we,
It's a good point, but I kind of see where Robin's coming from too.
are we rewording any of this then?
Unless others on the committee feel that we should split the budget between the two departments, we'll just leave it
Okay,
the way it is and
See how it works out for
see
this
how it
year.
works out.
okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
that leaves you with economic development?
I guess the annual question, are we getting some value out of, continuing to getting value out of that position? Other than continuing to promote Sturbridge, that's part of SATA, that's part of the other aspects in here. This is really, driving economic development.
Well, isn't his salary split with SATA?
Yeah,
Yes, his is split.
and so this piece here should be how are we helping drive economic development, not necessarily driving the tourism and marketing.
So I think that that's a hard thing to separate in this town. We are not a community like a Boston or a Springfield or a Worcester, where we are out hustling big businesses to come in and invest in Sturbridge. It's not the nature, we don't have that kind of space around for development. I don't think it's the will. We're not recruiting Amazon to come back, or look at us again. But I think economic development in our town, it does cross with STA, with tourism and travel very closely. I do think the value added to the position is the assistance when we do have a new business coming in. When we sit around at our land use meetings and we're talking about, a business that's coming in, Terry sits at those meetings, he serves as a liaison to those business owners coming in. He does help offer, the services and the guidance to get to people we need to. He is our liaison to things like the chamber, which is going to change, that dynamic is going to change, but working with Discover Central Massachusetts. So I do think there is a value to it. I think it is rightfully split with SBA, because I think that there is a heavy component in that end. But we do have value added, and, Terry works with our special events committee. Again, I think it's the nature of economic development in this town. It is not, we're not out hustling and recruiting, I'd like to see Trader Joe's come. Well, you know what? The market doesn't bear it, so it's not going to happen. And I think that that's where it's a challenge. Now, does he work with people like if the movie theater needed something, they have a liaison through Terry. Terry works with our local businesses to bring information back to STA. So the lines are a little blurred, no question, but I believe there's a value for that price. I believe there is a value, yeah. Standalone, without it having the STA component side of it, no, that I wouldn't say if you combine those two salaries and there was no such thing as STA, it probably would be more than it needed to be. But when you put the two together, I think it's fair.
Well, I would like to see perhaps in conjunction with STA, that they have the contact with the hospitality industry, that maybe they could do some measuring of what percent or what volume of the trails users are actually going into the different businesses in town and using them. Because there's a point where if you get a lot of activity from different towns, hospitality, it's an opportunity, I don't know how you'd structure it, to maybe put a number on who's spending what money that's using the trails, who's come buying food and drink and beverage, staying at hotels. It seems like that would be a vehicle to measure that.
I'd be happy to ask Terry to look into doing that. I think that's a great idea. We just got some numbers. I went to a presentation at OSV, and Jim has a good sense at OSV of people who come into OSV, how much there's, who's staying overnight in town, who's, going out to dinner after. So there are ways to get those metrics. And I'll talk to Terry and see if we can work with local hotels to see if they have a sense of if there's a way they can even put a survey card out. What did you come to this town for? I mean, we could work with them on something like that, even if it's not super formal, but just to give us a good sense.
Now, is he engaged?
I think it's a great idea.
Is he engaged with Tim Murray at the Worcester Chamber now that our local chamber is defunct?
Well, we're gonna have to be more engaged with the Worcester Chamber. I was on the phone with Discover Central Mass today, and they're very involved with the chamber up there as well, so we'll keep those connections alive and well.
Any other economic,
It's closed.
Mike, what do you think?
Alex retired.
You move your hold,
I'll
or,
remove my hold.
okay? All right, so then town administrator budget's
And
also.
and again, so help me understand this again, if your merit incentive budget,
Still in the
Yep.
mailing list.
so if I'm, this was for, I thought, department heads or directors, as you're calling them, who are maxed out in their pay grade, or is it regardless of where they are in their pay grade?
No, it's for certain directors that were put at a level on that old classification scale that was done just before I came. There was a classification scale done, and everybody up to a certain grade gets a COLA and a step, or whatever I propose for a wage adjustment and a step, and then they eventually max out and they just get the wage adjustment. But people above a certain grade that have sort of general salary type positions, they don't get a step. They would just get the cost of living adjustment, and then instead of getting a step or maxing out or anything like that, those top, I think it's 5 positions, I basically do a performance review and give them up to a certain percentage. So that's what that is. It's the police chief, the fire chief, DPW director, finance director, myself, and actually mine is through the board. Police chief, fire chief, DPW, Barbara, and it might be Jean.
Planning, Jean Bourbon.
Jane,
I believe Jean's at that level too.
she does everything.
So if I'm in one of those lower grades and I max out, I get my general wage increase plus my,
Well, you wouldn't get any more steps if you're not.
I don't get,
No, if you max out and you're below a grade 9 or below, that's it.
I get a
You max
general
out.
wage increase and I get my longevity. Okay, if I'm-
I will tell you this, and I mentioned this, I mentioned this, I think, at the budget hearing. I need to revisit this whole classification system. I need to revisit 12 steps. Most likely, from a standpoint of going forward, people who are here under a certain hiring and 12 steps, I would say, we're not going to change that. But it is unsustainable to keep hiring people with 12 steps. Then what happens is, our bottom step is too low to bring people in. Then I have to bring them in at step 5, let's say, but somebody who's been here 5 years is getting step 5. Or if I bring them in too high, they max out too soon, so that my COLAs, which are typically not on the high side, aren't enough to keep them. So I really need to look at the whole big picture on this, to be honest with you. But to answer your question for right now, this is what we have.
And it's not uncommon, as, if you're bringing someone in at an entry-level position, they belong in the step 1, and that's probably where it is. If you're bringing somebody in with some
It's high enough to
experience,
compete.
just
That's
because
the
they're coming in the door doesn't mean they need to start at step 1. They could start a little bit higher, and it's part of what you have to manage. They may be making more than somebody who's been here, a couple of years, but, that's what
But I
they're
can
worth
tell
and what
you-
that position's worth relative to the other
Yep.
position you're comparing against.
And that's the frustration we have, but I can tell you that we have a couple of positions that we would not have been able to staff had we not come in well higher than step 1.
So,
Our step 1s are they were competitive. The salary scales that were established 5 or 6 years ago were competitive pre-COVID or at the beginning of COVID. They are not now, and we're fair, but we're not, everybody has gone up so dramatically. And so this is why I have to look at how we do this. We cannot go up, raise that bottom step to where I can recruit and then go 12 steps beyond that. There's no way we can do that. So that's why I need to look at having a better initial recruiting salaries, a reasonable amount of steps, 3, 4, 5 steps, like like we do with the police and fire, for example. And then maxing and then looking at maybe wage adjustments that might be a little more generous, but not having the wage adjustment and step 10, step 11, step 12.
and just so I understand mechanics here, because I'm worried about, there seems to be a lot of pieces here. If I'm an unnamed, faceless individual in one of these positions, and I'm making 100, and I'm using round numbers to make math easy, I'm making $100,000 a year right now.
Yep.
And we come up with a 3% general wage increase. So next year, I get the 3%, so my salary would go to 103. I would then be eligible for this merit pay increase, right? If I'm
If you're
right?
grade 9 or above.
Yep. So maybe I got X percent, another, let's say, $2,000 of a merit increase on that. So my total compensation there is 105. Plus, so I've got the COLA, I've got the merit, and I also get the longevity pay, which was, part of that, so you've maxed out in your grade. You just get the COLA, but you get the longevity piece is sort of that bump, so.
Yeah, the
When you
longevity
go to
piece
figure my salary the next year, we go for another 3% general wage increase. Is that on top?
Longevity doesn't get added into your base, though, as a percentage. It does not compound.
Yeah, it's a one-time thing each year. But it makes us, it was designed to make up for that. You just get a general wage increase because you've maxed out, but you get a little bit more through the longevity pay as a one-time thing.
What I've done before, and I'm working to do here, if I can, is do, and I think I did it with fire this year, were seniority steps instead of longevity. So you just get rid of longevity, and this way you can keep, they only have 3 or 4 steps, and then at like year 7, they get another step, and at year 15, they get another step, and then at year 25, they get another step. So, and got rid of longevity completely. So there's seniority steps, so you're still encouraging people to stay because they know down the road they'll get a little bump other than just the wage adjustment, but it's not every year, and it's not with that plus longevity. I mean, this is a discussion for a different time because it's
So my last question, so
for
in my
our own
example,
staff as opposed to just union.
yep, so in my example, my salary went from 100 to 103, there's my general wage increase. I got a $2,000 merit for meeting, certain objectives and goals there. So I had $105,000 in compensation this year. We then come to the next budget cycle, and you're going to give another 3% general wage increase. Is that 3% on top of my 103 before the merit kicked in, or on top of the amount with the merit?
No, I believe the merit compounds into the salary.
Okay. So
not
basically you're
longevity.
giving a 5% increase to that individual versus
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
And that's where I think we should relook at, it's almost like we're, this piece is not as clear over here. It's better to go back and just say, your salary went up, the general wage increase was 3%, your salary is going up 5%, and show that number and put it in there versus over here, but.
Well, I think it's in that
We have-
pot, if you will, because it's not guaranteed that they're going to get that. They have to have a satisfactory or above satisfactory performance. So I think that's why it probably got put that way. But like I said, I really want to revisit the whole classification thing and the way we do the whole thing, Mike. I have concerns with how we do it across the board.
It just, that approach just seems unique to Sturbridge. I don't see a lot of other towns as I kind of look through their budgets and what they're doing, and talking to, folks in other communities, how they kind of manage their staff. That just seems to be unique to Sturbridge. Maybe it made sense in one area, but it just, there may be something I think could be a little clearer going forward.
I agree.
As you take a look.
I agree.
And
I agree.
clearer for the voters to really know how much we're increasing salaries over here.
And where you see it is when you look in the detailed budget, where you see the percent increase, like director's percent increase. You'll see it there. So if you go to one of those top 5 people or 6 people,
No.
you see it there. So it isn't hidden from the public. Actually, I don't know if you see the whole thing.
I'm looking at least 2 of those names positions on the list, and it.
No, you're right, you don't.
Increase
You
is
don't.
only
You can see it with step
2.7%
people
versus last
that
year,
show
so you
the
built
total.
something
Yeah,
in
you
there.
can step people.
I want to
So-
add to Mike's point, though. I don't know if you heard the 3 of us over here, but, we were all under the impression that the merit pool did not get built into their base salary. It was like a bonus. It was not part of the base salary. So if you got 3% and went from 100 to 103, and then you got 2% on top of that for
Let
another
me check.
2,000, your base
I could-
salary was 103,000 for the next year, not 105.
I may be wrong on that. I thought it compounded,
could you
but I know
clarify that?
longevity is not in it. I do not know.
Pensions and stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
but that would go in there. So,
It's confusing, because this is, because
Yeah,
you're the
so,
third
yeah,
time
I-
administrator I've gone through this with, on this same process we've been going over, and, it seems like a different answer to me on what
Well,
the end is.
And I would think that you can go back and
Find it.
this pool of positions, because I don't want to talk about individuals, and I don't have an issue with any of the individuals
No.
or salary levels, and I want us to be competitive and keep quality people here. It's just that the structure seems a little odd, not straightforward, and a better, clearer structure that still meets the goals there. And you could go through when setting the budget for the next year, you can go through that review process and says, I think you did a good year. You're gonna get your, just like I do in managing salaries for other staff, here's the general wage increase, and here's the extra you get for meeting and exceeding expectations and so forth, and someone gets 4%, someone gets a little bit less because, they performed better or had whatever during the year, so, and then you can come
I
in with
agree
that
fully.
increase and make it fair.
I brought it to the board, and they have supported me in redoing the whole classification plan this year, revising how we do all of this. I agree 100%. I don't like how it's set up. It looks kind of funky. It's this weird number in my budget. It's like I have this pot of money to dole out, So I agree. I don't necessarily, I'd rather just say this person's getting a 5% raise this year, and call it what it is.
And
But
they deserve
I
it,
just,
they earned
it
it,
takes
they-
time to do because, this classification plan was adopted, it went through a personnel committee, it went through a board several years back, but it has reached the end of its life cycle. They are only good for about 5 years. And this one is 5 years old this year, actually coming into its 6th year, and included a COVID anomaly in the middle of all of it. So it is going to be addressed, Mike. You're right. It's just, I couldn't get it done in time for this.
So, thanks for the explanation. Again, it's not directed towards any of the individuals in there. It's
Understood.
process and so forth.
Yep.
I'll remove my hold for this item for this year.
But just a point, you want to be consistent with how you treat people in this position that have no upside because of at the top of the rate, as opposed to how you treat people below that level. So if people below that level are getting a double hit, and getting 2+3 or 3+2, you want to be fair to your top management. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for new top management because it's a retention tool as well.
And I might argue it works for the people below, because of what I heard is if I'm in one of those positions below and I hit step 12 and I've maxed out, I just get the general wage increase, whereas these positions get that plus something, and how come I
And
didn't
that's
get
when
it
you
down
get
here?
migration to a new job.
Right, but if you don't put it into the base, then the lower people actually eventually end up passing. If they're on, depending on where they get hired, if on a high, like grade 8,
And
you
we're
get this
putting it in
weird
the base,
thing that
let's
they
tell
almost
people
cross.
this one's going
So,
up 5%.
look, the whole thing needs to be revamped. I'm not saying it was a bad thing when they did it. I think the intentions were all good, and I think at the time it may have worked. I just don't think it's working now it works for what people are actually getting paid. I don't think it works for what you're talking about, Mike, the look and the way it's done. But again, I have to reestablish that through a whole personnel manual. I can't just wave a wand and do it.
Right, Larry.
I'm on the Personnel Committee for the Finance Committee. You will recall that we had a member who was on the Personnel Committee, and she moved out of state,
Yeah.
and you asked everybody by email if anybody wanted to do it. I said, if no one else wants to do it, I will do it, and that was about 2 years ago. Everything talked about now has already been talked about in the Personnel Committee, which is why Robin was able to say with certainty about 11 times tonight, it is starting from scratch, as if, I know what, let's have a town called Sturbridge with employees. How are we going to pay? That basic. The current one is an abomination. Everybody agrees. It promotes salary compression, which is intrinsically unfair. So let me assure you that this committee is represented, and it is by dint of, nobody else wanted to do it, the TA appoints on a nomination you made, and likewise, there's a member from the Board of Selectmen. and there are 3 public members. And neither the selectman's representative nor the finance committee's representative is allowed to be chair. Only a member of the general public may chair. And that's how it is, and there are 3 people from the general public who have been appointed and through the process and confirmed by the selectmen. And it also means that people representing a town body, in this case, the Personnel Committee and the selectmen, even if there was a block vote of 2 votes, it's not enough to carry a message, carry a motion. The public members, if they choose to vote as a block, outvote, which is the best way. It's the way it ought to be. And you may not agree, Mike, and you'll appear before the Personnel Committee if you want to. I'm sure you'll get a fair hearing. But those are all vetted by the TA, the 5 members, and by the selectmen. But let the general public, if there were block voting, be the determiners. Nobody else. And maybe I undercut it. I think it was actually 13 times she said, the TA said, I'm starting from scratch. And she is, and the Personnel Committee supports it 5-0.
Is the committee and the TA have professional guidance from an outside consultant? Because this is an HR function all the way, and if you don't have that kind of background.
Well, be sure to ask the TA that. The Personnel Committee is not the TA. Personnel Committee reacts to the professional presentation.
Okay.
I can answer that, Jim. I don't want to, at this point, spend funds to do it. We have basics from what was done 5 or 6 years ago that still have merit to it. A lot of the research they did, a lot of the pulling together of descriptions they did, that all works well. As far as a pay structure and pay grade, this is work I've done myself before in communities. So I'm pretty comfortable bringing something forward, and then we might want to have an outside body vet it if there are questions or concerns. But I'm pretty confident I can get a plan together that's more than just a rough plan. And if when I bring that to personnel, they say, you know what, let's have an outside set of eyes look at it. I have that professional services, we have a professional services line item that has a small amount of money that I can always do that. So I, at this point, would rather not. We brought in an outside company. They provide a lot of foundation work, but they don't always understand the nuances, even in some of these positions. So I'd rather do the groundwork myself instead of bring a consultant in. And then if after, have someone take a look at my work product and say, okay, this works, that doesn't work. I see a pitfall here. I see a pitfall there. So I'm not opposed to the help. I just don't want to spend the money on something I can do myself initially.
Well, the difficulty you have is you don't have a peer group within the community that you can collaborate with, whereas another local community that I'm familiar with had an industrial group where you had a bunch of peers that were in those type of positions in different companies.
Well, we do. I do have resources. I mean, we have compiled, small town administrators compile lists of salaries, MMHR
With other
has
towns, yeah.
compile lists. So we do a lot of comparative analysis.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's nice to know
absolutely.
what Spencer's doing and what Southbridge is doing. And
Yeah, and we look at what are our comparable communities. We're a little challenging because our population's 9,800 most of the year, but in the summer it's a lot higher. So let's say when we look at our police and fire, or our those types of services compared to what a normal 10,000 person town has. So we're very careful on what we use for comparatives and who we use, and we take that really seriously when we look at any of these things.
I think the methodology makes a lot of sense. You bring a lot of experience with you, you might as
DPW
well
and
use that
education.
experience and knowledge, and then if you use your peers and outside, and for comparison, put it together, I would assume you come up with a good plan.
Yeah, I could spend a lot less having someone review if I do the groundwork.
You successfully sourced top folks from adjoining communities. We have a couple of people that came from communities in the general vicinity that now work for us, that you attracted from other towns. which is great. They're top notch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We
almost
still have
with
two
my
more
holds.
holds.
Thank
Your
you. We'll
holds
move
are
on
all-
to DPW,
yeah.
that's good.
DPW hold?
Oh, I just had a question. It looked like, the number, unless I missed something, the number didn't match, that's on C9 for DPW, doesn't match the D30.
So, snow and ice, and the snow, there are a couple items that come out of that into other line items
Yeah.
that are included on page D30.
That's how.
Okay, say that again?
So snow and ice is its, like snow and ice removal is its own separate in the line item budget, but it's included in that big breakdown.
Okay.
So that number's, looks way bigger
Sorry, I
than.
obviously didn't analyze it that deeply. I just saw different numbers and I thought I'd point it
And
out.
it's not just snow and ice, there's a couple others like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so,
Withdraw my hold.
beautiful. All right, Larry, you had a hold on education, and then Ken did too?
Yes, for two reasons. One is, after this book was printed and, excuse me, and distributed, the Burgess numbers changed during or as a result of the public hearing. And the numbers have also changed because of new information for the Tantascwa figure. So we don't have the prevailing numbers. By prevailing, I mean both school committees voted a number
Yeah.
respectively.
So what are they?
And that's not this number.
So what are they?
Well, I have the Burgess number, but I don't know.
You,
Well,
both public hearings have been held, so the votes
Yeah,
have taken place.
Right, I've got two reasons for my hold, and that's the first. The second is, doesn't matter what the number is from a standpoint of new and new-ish members of this committee, and much more important is whoever's looking on television. And this is an opportunity to present through the appearance before this committee of the superintendent and the director of business and finance for both school committees. What's behind the grand total? Where does it come from? There are, for example, some changes in school choice revenue. Why do some numbers go up and others simultaneously go down? That should all be spelled out for the viewing public, the voters, and for members of this committee who have not been acquainted with there are some who haven't been to an annual town meeting yet, at least one, or only one town meeting. Those should all be known before this committee votes, and I'm sticking with my hold.
Okay, but can you just tell me, is the new numbers lower or higher than this number?
I don't-
Because that factors into, we're at zero, right? We have no, we can't go up, but we can go down. So I just like to know
I
if
don't-
we're in that.
I wrote it down somewhere, it doesn't matter.
It does matter.
It matters to you. I'm concerned about the people on the other side of
I
that
know, but
camera.
all I want to know is, do we
What was it
have?
last night, Kathy, do you recall?
I thought it was lower, both of them.
The Burgess is, what is that, like 35,000 lower.
Okay.
So the Burgess number is lower.
I don't mind holding, and you're gonna ask Deb not to come. I just want to know if I have a problem where I have to go back and say, okay, where are we gonna find the revenue to account for it going up?
No, you don't.
That was the question I had, Larry. Are they going to come and talk to us again?
Yes,
Okay.
Perfect.
Then do
And
that.
that's
that's what I
great.
tried to get across. They're going to be here.
That's good. So we'll vote on
They're
it
going
after.
to sit right there like they used to.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the public would be interested and had an opportunity to go to those public hearings, and I think they were recorded and broadcast there. I don't mind them coming in and hearing it again, but,
I'm not moving my hold.
okay.
When are they gonna
Yeah,
come
the
in?
one for Burgess hasn't been,
Yeah,
hasn't
exactly.
been on
When
TV
do
yet.
you
I don't know
plan
when
on
it's going
asking
to
them
be.
come?
What's that?
When do you plan on asking them to be here so I can add it to the agenda?
When the committee can see them and when they can be here. So ideally, it'll be next Thursday.
That would be perfect. So could you just let me know if that can be arranged?
I promise.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah, you're right, they covered a lot of nuances that people aren't
yeah.
aware of.
Sure.
that We were aware of as we
That's
got
right.
into it. yeah.
So, all right, we'll hold then on Article
Won't be next year.
15 till next week. So
Well,
that
you
you
can have,
Yeah, and I won't be here next week, so my hold is a little different, okay?
Okay,
And part of it is start to where with the summary for the budget, and it basically, in a summation, said that the provided stellar education, continue to provide stellar education. And also, it's a general comment about the school system. And looking at it, I don't think you can generally round it out and say, as a whole, the school systems work stellar in comparison.
to
So,
what?
so what I did, and it's kind of started last year, and I looked at, there's several different reports. One is, and people get tired of this, is the World News and World Report. There's also DESE, Directory of Data and Reports, and there's a niche report. I did a lot of research. Anyway, point being is, if you look at, let's look at Tashua, for instance, and if you look at the ratings for math at 80%, if you look at the, for reading, it was 82% proficiency.
Where
And
are
then
you
look at
getting, where are you getting these figures?
News and World Report, I have copies of it. Or you can get it at the DSE, or you can get it at Niche, or they can come up with their own numbers. Because like I said at the meeting, if these numbers are not
There
accurate,
are about half a dozen surveys online that I went and looked at.
well, these are, I looked at the
West
methodology,
News
I
and
looked at the
World-
methodology here, and it's
And I
pretty
looked at
accurate.
DESC too.
Yeah,
so.
I did, I looked at them. Anyway, point being is, it's just an observation. The overall rating for Tashua was 92.8%. Let's fast forward to Tashua. The last year's report was 47% for math, currently 49% proficiency, improved for that. Reading was 63%, dropped down to 53%. The overall rating went from 288 to 400. So all I brought up at the town meeting is, why is there discrepancy?
Depends on which survey you look at. I saw,
I
found one
looked
was
at three,
216.
so you can pick.
I found one that was at 216, Ken.
Yeah, well, pick any one you want.
Out of
What I'm saying is
800.
there seems to be a problem, and all I'm saying is, if there's an issue, then let's address it, and let's see how we're gonna do it, and what's the
Well,
goals.
I
And if there's not an issue, and there's other data, then let us know, and that's fine too. That's all. I can say, I can put this in the sand and say, I can say this
I'll go over the
is,
4 survey results that I documented. I think you're off base, and I don't think that's the purview of this committee to be covering the subject you're talking about. I think that's the purview of the school committee. We're here to decide a budget, not to judge the
no,
performance.
I disagree with that.
Well, okay,
The
well, I
the idea
don't.
of the committee is to make sure the taxpayer gets value for their tax dollars.
Well-
And if they're not doing it, it's our committee. Our committee is also
These are
supposed to do
survey
in-depth
results.
analysis.
From 1, 2, 3, 4 surveys that all say, some of them say we have an
My point being-
exceptional school
The
system.
point being is that if they have other ratings and other measurements between Tintashua and Burgess, and this number's wrong, and the proficiency rates are going up, and they're not 47 or 50 or 48, they're 75, fine. Fine with me, that's fine. Tintashua, I mean, is doing great, from what I see. I could be wrong there too then. Maybe those numbers are wrong, maybe the other ones are. All I said, I brought this to the attention, and at the meeting, there was no answers to right, wrong, and different. I think they left with the idea that they're gonna check into it, and if things are going well, fine, that's all I'm asking for. If they're not, let's improve.
They
We owe it to the
actually-
townspeople.
they have checked into it. Would you be interested in the 5-year improvement plan?
Sure.
Here it is. Please pass it down.
And Ken, those numbers by themselves, I'd have to go back and put those, how that rates against others. So if those, what you may be suggesting are low percentiles of achievement, put us in a high, top 10%, you know, the highest percentile of achievement versus other schools, we're doing well versus others, and that's more of a fundamental issue there. So I don't want those numbers by themselves suggest that we're we're having difficulties over there, or, you know, we're not getting the value we want, so we should scrub some dollars out of the budget, put it somewhere else, or let's throw a couple $1 million more into the budget, because more money is gonna improve the results. I think when you raised that issue, I didn't see the administration or any members of the school committee, you know, feel that, that more money was needed to make improvements over there. And so if we need to hold them accountable, I think the issue is to, you know, address school committee members and to come up with, you know, what's your benchmark in terms of showing that you are a stellar versus an average
We
community.
cannot hold them accountable. Jim is right. What do you think the public, we didn't
Well,
hold
no,
them.
no, wait, hang on. I think Mike made the point here, he should go to the school committee members as an individual, not the finance committee, just.
I stand corrected. Yes, I agree with Mike and I agree with Jim. That was not, neither of those public hearings were conducted by the Sturbridge Finance Committee. We were invited. We sat there as residents who also serve on the school committee. If you want to, we could have like Paul Revere run around saying, the school committee's coming, the school committee's coming, and everybody will rush and support us and, you know, treat them like the redcoats and get rid of them. And we can rule the world.
But
Sounds pretty good, huh?
But you do have the right, sitting there in that meeting, to ask questions of them.
Of course.
And
That ain't the issue. Sitting here, we can learn what the school committee has approved.
right. But asking
And
a question
whether we
in and
can
of itself is not a problem. That's what my point.
The more the merrier, because that's why I put a hold on, one of the two reasons, so that questions asked, the answers to which will be heard by the general public and by new and newish members of this group. But we have, I think I can count it out,
870.
zero authority over the schools. Zero. Not one, not -1, nothing.
All right. Well, we have the hold in place. If you want, Ken, since you're not going to be here to submit questions, I can read them into the record and have them answer them.
Okay, I will get back.
And
Or Larry, if you can ask them to address the issues that Ken raised at his hearing tonight, and
Actually,
he can watch the tape.
it may have fallen on the deaf ears, but they did when it was raised.
Yep.
And because they did, and sensed, I think, correctly, that it fell on deaf ears, this is what I was handed last night. And said, if the gentleman wants it, he's got it.
And that's fine, and I'm looking at this, and I don't think per our initial introduction, this is stellar. I'm sorry, it's still, it's improved, but it's not stellar. And that's the different point. But I think the whole thing with the committee here is, and I did, again, more research on it, is what part of our job is to make sure the budget arrives to the best interest of the townspeople. If we find out the school system, for whatever reason, can be improved, and more money's needed or not needed, and it's in the best interest of the townspeople, I think that's our responsibility. And,
No.
well, that's what it says in the.
Can I ask you a
that's what
question?
It says in.
Ken,
the chart.
can I ask you a
I have all
question?
the information, I wrote everything down there.
Ken,
So,
can-
besides the idea, let me finish for a second. Regardless of committee officers, et cetera, to clarify the budget, answer questions, we can request facts, data, figure, and other information from departments, in short, information we need to do in-depth analysis. So we can get people here and say, what's the cost per student versus another town?
Bottom line number.
We don't, I'm not to play games, picky and ask for stupid information. Trust me, that's not the point here. What we have to write in this committee, and it's not mine, it was written before me, to get these people in and say, here's questions, and we want data. What's the cost per student? What's the raising in budget for this? There's a lot of questions we could ask. We asked it as a citizen the other night, And to be honest with you, they didn't seem prepared to answer it. And that's fine, maybe they're prepared here. The other night, they weren't, and I was asking, as a citizen, sitting with the citizens.
Do you want this, if they're available, they have other towns and other obligations. Since you're not here next week, do you want them not here next week? Or do you want this done behind your back in public?
One more time, I'm sorry, the last one, the last one.
You're not going to be here next week,
No.
you say.
Yeah.
So, do you grant them permission to be here anyway?
Sure.
Oh, fine.
400 out of
All right, well, you'll miss
87.
out, but that's how it goes. That's
Or-
your choice.
Which,
But the other option is have them come in 2 weeks when you're gonna be here.
tell them to come in 2 weeks then. Sorry.
What's that?
Have them come in 2 weeks when I'm here.
If they can be here then, but we have another 3 or 4 or 5 meetings anyway.
Statewide.
Let's
So
get
I'm
it
sure the
done.
dates will fit, if not 2 weeks from now. We'll see.
But can you make sure they're here, because we don't have a lot of timing, you know, unless we have a special meeting.
I'm
Not up to him, it's up to.
I know, I'm just saying,
find out.
well, yeah, and let me know, and if we have to meet
I
on Tuesday or
will.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Ken, there are other subtleties that you can't overlook when you're looking at this. First of all, in reading and math, we exceed the state average in both categories substantially. Reading statewide is 42, we're 53. Math is 40, we're 49. And we've talked about this, that we have that program at Burgess, the Creative Pathways for Special Needs Kids, and that's why we keep them in town instead of farming them out like other communities do. 39% of the students at Burgess Elementary School are special needs. 39%. That's at least 10 to 15% or more above any school in the region, including the other 4 schools in our district. We have, I think the highest number was 29%, and the average was around 25, and we're at 39, because people move here with kids with special needs to put them in that school, and that makes our numbers go down when they do things like MCAS, because these kids can't score on MCAS the way a kid that's going to Bancroft or someone like that can. So you have to look at the whole
And that's
package.
fine, numbers are used.
Numbers are made to lie, and
No,
US News and
I figured
World
from my last
Report is
figure.
one of the least reliable programs
Let's
out there.
just wait and get all the facts,
Yeah.
you know, we'll get the people here with the
And I
answers.
say thank you.
You're welcome. US News and World Report is looked down on the boards of trustees and presidents and chancellors and provosts of many of the top flight American universities. They don't even give them the data anymore.
Well, let me tell you, when I get to the report and look at these numbers, they're
right.
proficient, very
We're
close.
just arguing semantics now, it's just,
So Kevin,
You're
I'm
looking
gonna,
at a
Wait,
species of
wait.
flaw.
Larry.
okay, I'm gonna make a
We got a
motion
motion, so.
for us to get through the general government
thought we were done.
budget,
No, we're not even close.
not excluding the, which excludes the educational budget. So the motion would be that we recommend that town meeting approve each department total budget line item as presented in the books that we have for a total general government expense amount of $21,311,000. Hang on.
I'll help you out, yeah. Where's the line item
Our
budget?
number is $2,000 less than the administrator and selectmen budget. Is there a reason for that?
There must be oh, really? There's a error in the formula somewhere. There is.
I'm just going by each department to see where they vary.
Yeah, let's see. There should be a grand total here, too. That includes 44 million, so we have, that lines up. Do you know, Robin, did you only make the adjustments in our FinCom recommend thing, and the other two you didn't bother with? Because they do not line up.
They should, the selectmen recommended and the FinCom recommended should have been identical, I believe.
Well, they're not.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see what I got.
The bottom lines are identical, but those aren't.
Yeah.
One's
So if
311,
you go to
one's
the, I see
315.
what you're looking, yeah, total general government. Yeah, hold on a second, let me look at this.
It's just a
So we're
typo.
talking about the 14083.
I may have to have Barbara just check on that, but let me look and see where, it's 2,000 there, but the bottom line is the same, everything else, it looks like that may be a typo. Because every other
the
number
formula
across
error.
there,
Something's gotta be off on that one. It looks like the 311 is off, because as I looked at every total line item, they were all the same. And that's the
Right.
only number that's off.
I'm inclined to think that's a typographical error.
No, it's just one formula isn't the same as the other two.
Total general government, if you go to page C14,
That's where we are.
right, and you look at that total general government, it's 2,000 off, right?
Right.
But every other line on that page, above it and below it, the schools, everything, is exactly right, and the bottom line is exactly right. So I'm inclined to think it wasn't formula driven, that there's something that looks to me like that's a typo. Because everything else is exactly the same. The bottom line, if I were to back out, if you back out 44,246,123 and subtract those 3 school items,
Right, that's what I'm trying to do.
let's see what we get when we back out. Three. 2,000,
98 versus 896.
8849.
There's your error right there.
We come up with the 2311,
Right, so that,
21.
yeah,
Our number's right,
that is a
21,
good number.
311,
What I
288.
think probably happened is we may have made an adjustment of 2,000 somewhere. That just in between the versions, that's all. But if that 44,246 is accurate, and you back out the school, which is exactly the same in both
You get the
columns,
21, 311, 288.
that's,
your
then that
number,
would be the
Mike.
number.
All right.
Yep.
Yep, and when I look at every department total, they're the same for all 3 things up. So anyway,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
look at this
It's just
spreadsheet.
like-
I used to do this before.
Well, we made a
It's
last
a
minute
spreadsheet
adjustment
error.
that didn't get it.
The motion is that we recommend the town meeting approve the department budgets as presented in,
Yeah.
in.
Line item budget.
In Appendix C here, for the general government expenses totaling $21,311,288.
I'll second. So what we're doing is moving everything except education.
Right.
All right, all those in favor? 7-0.
Minutes.
I did. All right, so the last thing in tonight's agenda, I'm sorry it turned into such a slog, is March 3rd meeting minutes.
Did we get them?
Yeah, a long
Mike
time
sent them out
ago.
a couple of weeks ago.
I know, I emailed them like Monday night or something, so.
Was it
if
that
you didn't
recent?
See them,
You
want
said
to go next week?
3/10, March 10th you sent them. Yeah, oh, wait, it seems like weeks ago now.
Yeah, it does. I'm right here.
So I closed it, but I do have just a minor adjustment.
There we go.
On page 2, the third bullet point on page 2, I would just kind of say that, the role that all the safety factors that were put in place over the years, such as free class table, are helping balance this year's, take out the playing to, are helping balance this year's budget, but the loud drum beats, and not and, but the loud drum beats that are sounding, is that we need to start looking at controlling, cutting costs as revenues are not increasing
Playing
as
supposed to be,
much as costs.
is playing supposed to be planning to? Supposed to be planning to?
Where are
The third bullet point in page 2.
we? The pages aren't numbered here. so-
Third bullet point, page 2.
You're right above discussion items raised by select board members
Okay.
included. That paragraph right there, that bullet point is
Yes.
where I'm just adjusting.
I'm sorry. Just playing, should probably be planning to help.
But the one John needs,
Loud beats.
so,
We're taking out the word
Playing-
helping.
playing
Playing to goes
to-
away, make helping, and then change and to but.
yep, I got it. are
I'm sorry,
helping to
repeat that
balance
one
this
more
year's
time.
budget.
Yeah,
Yes,
whatever, get the plane.
So you
You're
take out,
removing what?
take out the words playing to, change help to helping, and then change the word and to be but the loud drum beats that are sounding is that we need to start controlling cutting costs or, you know, because we're not
Right.
pursuing revenue.
So is
That was my
M-
change.
Okay, so as MC is looking at those, the other issue in there is, there's a long list of department heads that were in the back of the room.
I'd only put the ones in that actually spoke. If they were present but didn't say a
I
thing,
didn't want to put 8 names in and leave 3 off, because I didn't have a full count, and since they were just attendees versus participants. we didn't
Participants,
take-
yeah.
Okay.
okay. Anyone else have anything they want to adjust? As I would take a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Oh, you did send them to me. I'm sorry.
He's good. He sent them to everybody.
Yeah,
So the motion was Jim?
No, yeah, Jim was the motion. I guess I'll second, so at least we get it off the thing. So that's amended. All right, all those in favor? 7, 6, oh, yeah, you weren't here, 6 to 0 to 1.
6, 0, 1.
Yep. Perfect. All right, so that gets us through everything. I mean, there's no one here for public access. I don't know if anyone has new business. Part of that curation is, you know, things for, in our books, you know, later on, the, you know, topics for your attention, stuff and things like that. I didn't really get a lot here tonight. And so is there anything else? Otherwise, we'll let Kathy make a motion.
I have placed the query to the superintendent and director of business and finance.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I like that. Quick service. So Kathy?
You say jump, I say how high.
Oh, you're usually the one who makes the motion to adjourn, that's right.
I'm in another world at this point. It's after 10 o'clock. I'll move that we adjourn.
It's 10:10, that's a
Do I have a
nice round
second?
number.
yes, me.
All those in favor of adjournment? Thank you all, everyone. I know it was a long one, but thank you. Thanks, Robin, and
Thank you.